Call the meeting in order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those who are with us here this evening and all those who are watching us at home. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. At this time, I'd like to introduce Captain Joe Michael James of the Wilmington Fire Department. If you'll please come forward to give our invocation. If everyone will stand and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Captain? The captain's not here. We're going to go to Councilmember Burnett. Mr. Burnett.
God, we thank you for this day. We even thank you, God, for the rain that reminds us that even in sunshine or rain, you are still with us. So we pray that you will bless our time together, bless the thoughts, the words, may the things that we do will help to prove, to make Wilmington a better place to live. For we ask it all in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have two presentations this evening. Our first presentation, I'm going to recognize our city manager, Becky Hawk, who will be talking about a consideration of the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. This evening, our Director of Housing and Neighborhood Services, Rachel Schuler, will be handling this presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is the consideration of the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee. Just again, a brief history, starting in 2014 with the Pathways to Prosperity report that was commissioned by New Hanover County, more commonly known as the Garner Report, which identified opportunities and challenges in the economic development, including housing options. This led to the 2015 Mayor's Roundtable Steering Committee, where these opportunities and challenges were discussed with business leaders, local leaders, and organizations. Recommendations from that committee led to the Joint City-County Ad Hoc Committee for Workforce and Affordable Housing. This task force looked at best practices from other communities and brought forward strategies and recommendations in their final report. Among those recommendations was a permanent advisory committee. That led to the resolution to establish the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee by both City Council and the Board of Commissioners. In 2025, last month, New Hanover County voted to withdraw their participation from this committee. The committee that was established in 2019 had 13 members, 6 appointed by council and 6 appointed by the commissioners, along with the chair of the Joint Community Relations Advisory Committee. The members consisted of various backgrounds to bring different thoughts and ideas around the idea of workforce and affordable housing. They had specific duties shown here, including a workforce housing study and survey, a public awareness campaign on the topic of workforce housing, recommending an advisory capacity, procedures, programs, and policies to promote workforce housing, providing annual reports, which were typically done in January, conducting other duties as assigned, and to meet quarterly, though they elected to meet monthly. Other highlights from the interlocal agreement include defining workforce housing at a community level at 60 to 120% of the area median income. The county also agreed to dedicate 1 employee to help with support the housing committee as well as the issue of workforce housing. The city appointed a staff member to be a liaison for the committee as well. Getting into some discussion from the agenda briefing yesterday, really defining housing affordability. Housing affordability is really talking about housing that is attainable for households, so not costing more than 30% of a person's monthly income. There's a big difference if somebody's earning $1,000 a month, what they have left over, versus if they were earning $10,000 a month. And so that where it really becomes more evident is when we talk about more that capital A affordable housing, which is for households under 80% of the area median income. That is the HUD way of looking at it. That's where our funding is resourced for those households. That workforce housing definition has been more local for that 60 to 120% of area median income. It's not industry specific, though it can include people like firefighters, police officers, nurses, teachers, or senior citizens and people with other sources of income. This is more of a community-based definition that is used for this committee. As part of the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee's work, they did establish a strategic plan shown here, really focusing on two sides of the house, balancing housing costs with wages and increasing the diversity of housing. Through different strategic objectives and outcomes, there were different measures to look at the progress that was made. Shown here is an example of the city-funded as well as some of the density incentives that have taken place since really before the committee was formed with the Arboretum West project. So you can see in the column with how much funding the city has invested, as well as the total project costs, and the number of units that were produced overall and the ones that are dedicated for workforce housing. Where there's a difference and it's not a 100% project, those are the ones that have utilized that density incentive through planning. The work of the committee has really been driven by a lot of the studies. This year, the North Carolina Chamber Foundation, in partnership with the home builders and the realtors, conducted a statewide housing needs assessment with Bowen Research. Shown here is a New Hanover County. It was a county-by-county study showing the different housing gaps by income ranges that are needed over the next 5 years. It's broken down by rental and for sale, for the different income brackets. And as you can see on the numbers, there are some that the market may take care of naturally, and there are others that will need subsidies or assistance, whether that's the density incentives or the actual funding to get to those numbers. Building off of that, some existing engagement that is happening, citizen participation. That is embedded in all of our planning processes across all of the organization in the different departments. Any plan that is put forward has citizen participation, where we are able to speak directly to stakeholders and hear their unique perspectives in all of the work we do. The Cape Fear Homeless Continuum of Care, it is a fiscal agent, but they serve to really bring the collaboration of the different agencies and partners to help really move forward those who are experiencing homelessness in our community, finding different solutions and strategies to help move that needle. And then the Cape Fear Housing Coalition is a regional effort that involves the city of Wilmington, New Hanover, Pender, Brunswick, and other communities to really move the needle on affordable housing options and really housing across the spectrum. Additionally, in the City of Wilmington Strategic Plan, the focus area of creating a thriving, inclusive, and affordable community of neighborhoods is one of the objectives that have been identified. You can see the objective of improving availability and options, and some of the initiatives to really help get there are identified. Just a few baseline studies from across the state. In Asheville, there is an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee that has been put on pause due to the hurricane relief efforts. But the committee, as you can see here, some of the specific functions that they have are really over their affordable housing plan and some of the advising on some of the priorities for the city funds. So not administering the funds, but advising sort of the direction and priorities. In Charlotte, it's a little bit different. It's more in line with how our strategic plan is set up, where that committee is on housing, safety, and community. And so you can see that that's a little bit broader, but it includes the affordable housing there. And then in Durham, they have an affordable housing implementation committee specifically for their housing investment funds that they have dedicated. They provide briefings every 6 months, and they meet regularly to help move that process along. So back to the considerations. The first option is to sunset the committee. The second is to review other avenues for engagement and identify any gaps that a committee could fill. The third is to establish a new committee. It could be different structures where it's council appointed or the mayor appointed. Or option 4, to create an ad hoc committee. Those are obviously more specific plans or for a specific period of time if there was specific goals in mind that you wanted them to work through. So this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Rachel? Yes, sir.
Just one statement. You mentioned in the very beginning that we originally asked you to meet quarterly, and you guys decided to meet monthly. Tell us why.
The committee had elected to do that. Early on, there was a lot of work that had to be done in procuring the consultant for the housing needs study, and If anyone's worked through a study and survey, you know that there's a lot of regular updates needed through the consulting process that sort of bled into some of the other work, and then it just became a regular occurrence, and it never moved into a different meeting occurrence.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Becky, are you going to be asking us, in moving forward with this reset of this committee, because the city of Wilmington has been in the affordable housing business since the 90s, and has spent a considerable amount of money, and you can see the money we've spent since, I guess, 2022 is about $23 million. You're going to be asking us to reconstitute this committee to kind of be more of a city-centric, but also with other partners that we can bring into this new committee. Is that correct?
Thank you,
Or
Mr.
are
Mayor.
you looking for some direction
What we're
from
looking
us?
for is direction from council due to the changes that happened with the county's half of the structure. We know that the existing bylaws can't continue the way they are. So at minimum, the bylaws just need to be rewritten. But we wanted to just present the options to council to get feedback of if there are other changes that you want to make, or if this is a committee that you no longer wish to see in this exact format. So it's really just looking for majority directions that we can go back and take whatever action is desired by council.
Sure. So, and when you would like for us to get back with you on these particular, whatever the options that have been set here, instead of us having a discussion about it right now, but do.
It would be up to council if you'd like to have the discussion now. If you're ready to give feedback and weigh in, we would be happy to take it now. If you need to take it under advisement for an additional period of time, we can put it on a future agenda.
Well, I mean, I would definitely want to continue on with the new committee, and how we reestablish that. I think is going to be extremely important. I think it should be charged with some specific things that we would like to see. We'd like to see, obviously, an increase in the amount of units that we feel that we could put into the marketplace, as well as working. I think there was some discussion the other day about some of the regulatory issues that are maybe affecting affordable housing and what we can do or not do from a state statute perspective or federal statute perspective, but to see what we could do internally as a community in regards to removing some of those barriers that may raise some of those costs. I think that we should include in some capacity the Wilmington Housing Authority, because of the fact is they are giving out vouchers that are spread throughout the entire community, not only in the city of Wilmington, but also into New Hanover County. I think they also play a very important role, and they're going to be a significant amount of redevelopment opportunities that are going to be coming up from Hillcrest to possibly Houston more. But I know some of those things are already in the works. And I know that we have still are going to be putting the 1 cent toward affordable housing, which of course is a considerable amount, considering that right now we may be the only governmental agency that is doing that. So I like where we're going with this. I think that you've got a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of work has been done. If we could take some people from that current committee and include them here, and I'm not opposed to somebody being that they could be a county resident that could be part of this. I don't think it has to be city-centric, but I do think that they play a very vital role in maybe giving us some insight on some things that we can do. We have Councilmember Andrews.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I mentioned this earlier yesterday, that it doesn't really matter how we define workforce and affordable housing, and Councilmember Spears talked a little bit about, why it's more palatable to talk about workforce housing in some circles than it is to talk about affordable housing. I would like to see it expanded to talk about all levels of affordable housing, because the reality is right now the HUD figures say that a one-bedroom apartment in Wilmington right now, the median rent is $1,353. Andrea Stroh from the Continuum of Care has estimated that the current one-bedroom units that are listed are closer to 14 something. But even if you take that HUD number, that 1353, that requires a full-time hourly wage of $26 an hour. And there are a lot of workforce in Wilmington that are not making $26 an hour that are working full-time. So we clearly still have a lot of work to do. And whether the county wants to withdraw from this, I think that's very unfortunate, but I think we need to continue as a community to put into this. I thank you for putting all those figures up there that we've invested in. We have been able to leverage a lot of private investment with our 1 cent for affordable housing. For our public dollars, we've been able to leverage a lot of private dollars to bring more units on the market. And so thank you for all your good work. I would like to see that we continue this committee as a completely city-run committee and city council appointed, and consider all options for affordable housing for everybody.
Mr. Reinbach.
Thank you, Rachel. It's a very good presentation. Could you go back a few slides with all the go forward just a little bit?
Go the other way.
There, you know, we've got, you know, over the years, we've had one committee after another, us by ourselves, the county by ourselves, joint meetings, and and everything sounds real good, like we're going to go out and start bringing it out of the ground, and I don't see it happening. When various developers have come stood where you are, and they were in town to build workforce housing and needed help, we helped, and we can see it out at Ogden, Carolina Beach Road, and others that I can't recall right now. That's where the rubber meets the road and things get done. We have all of these meetings and all of these committees, and they come up with all of these plans and stuff, and it perpetuates itself. It just keeps moving and keeps moving. When a house out there on the market is listed at $340 or $360, that's looked at as affordable housing. The problem is what Celeste just said, it's with the income. And if we could make that happen, I mean, because the people that are building the houses and the people that own houses that could become a starter house or a second home, they're not going to drop the price back. They're going to do exactly what the market gives them. And there's not anybody out in this audience that wouldn't agree with that. Why would they sell their house 40% of what it's worth and what they can get on an open market? That's the problem we've got, and we can sit up here and we can give 1 penny of our tax rate, and the tax rate, what does it produce, Bill?
About $3 million.
About $3 million. And it's like we're a dog chasing his tail. We never seem to catch it. So I don't know if this committee is the one that can carry forth and do great things or what, but it hasn't been working, in my opinion. And that's no reflection on your department, you, or any of the people out there doing it. It's just, we just haven't seen the results that everybody's wanting to see. I know that right in this very room, we had a gentleman from Asheville about maybe 10 years ago, and they were putting in the plan that you're talking about. He said, everywhere we go, they run us off because they don't want it anywhere near their neighborhood. And we've had that very thing happen in this town when we had opportunities to do something and people looked at something they thought they could afford, and the neighbors rise up and say, we don't want it in our neighborhood. I get it, but that's just what we run into. So we can talk all day and all night long about this thing, but at the end of the day, it just feels like we're just not getting anywhere. So I don't know, how I feel about this committee. I've never thought that this city, a municipal government, should be involved in this kind of work. To me, that's a county project. That's a state project or a federal project, not a city, but here we are. We're in it. So those are my comments. Thank you, Rachel.
Mr. Spears.
I said it yesterday. I'll say it again today. I think it's unfortunate to hear Councilman Rivenbark's sentiments about the work that we've done that's related to affordable housing, which is the big umbrella. Councilmember Andrews alluded to what I said yesterday as well. The term workforce housing came to life because people considered affordable housing as low-income housing, which is not. Affordability is affordability for everyone. No, I'm not counting your wallet, your purse, or whatever. Affordability is affordability. But Councilman Rivenbark just spoke to that piece as well. Some people in this community said, no, we don't want that by us. And then some other people in this community don't have a say in what they get by them. So we have to live with it. But the work is needed. It's important work. It is unfortunate that the county opted out for whatever reason, for whatever financial reasons that don't really exist, that they decided to opt out. But I don't want this governing body to follow that path or that detrimental ideology as it relates to this community, because that's just what this is, a community. So we have to keep working. We have to keep taking steps, shuffles, whatever it is, forward, not backwards. So if you're listening, Becky and Rachel, I can see you nodding your head. I know you're listening. We definitely need to keep this committee in place. And I don't know, do we want to go back to affordable housing? We understand what workforce housing is. It doesn't matter as long as the work is still getting done. So that's just my piece on it.
Mr. Burnett?
Thank you for the update. And just my comments are real simple. As we deal with the housing issue, not only here but across the country, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a 40-yard dash. It's a marathon. And I am very proud of the work that the committee has done, and I would hate for us to lose that momentum. So I'm in favor of keeping the committee and adding those that we need to add to it, because, again, it's a marathon, and we're taking small steps. But when you go back and look at those numbers and look at the number of houses we had a chance to do and how many people we've had an opportunity to get them into a house, I think we've got to do that. We've got to. Thank you.
Mr. Joyner?
Thank you. I would just add that I think that the work of this committee is important. I share the sentiments about the fact that some folks walked away from the table with this, but I think that we need to continue to keep our foot on the gas here in the city with this. I am open to, if there are proposed restructures from city staff or from the members of the committee, I mean, now would be the time to make those, so let's bring those forward if that's something that is being offered. And then I would be interested in increased reports. They don't necessarily have to come to us in meetings. They don't necessarily have to be from that podium. But if we could maybe get summaries of the meetings, understand what the big action items that they're doing over time are, because I do agree we don't want to have meetings just for the sake of having meetings. I don't want people to get burned out by being asked to be on too many committees. And so if we're going to make some tweaks, now's the time to do it. But I wanted to keep this as the focus. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Ms. Hawk?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, we have the consideration of the Community Relations Advisory Committee, and that will be handled by Deputy City Manager Mary Vigue.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Tonight I will be presenting on the Community Relations Advisory Committee. Just as a reminder, I want to walk through some brief history with you about the formation of the committee. In 2015, both the Wilmington City Council and New Hanover County Board of Commissioners voted in support of a joint committee. In 2016, staff worked on the development of joint bylaws that were brought back before both governing bodies, where they were approved in 2016. Recently, New Hanover County voted to conclude their participation in the program, and so that is one of the reasons we are in front of you tonight. So the City County Advisory Committee was established. There were 6 members appointed by the City Council and 6 by the County Commissioners. You can see that they represent the civil rights community, the faith community, our business community, education community, and then there were 4 at large, 2 from the city and 2 from the county. Some of the duties associated with the committee, they were to research and study any condition which represented prejudice or discrimination in the community. They were to develop educational and instructional materials and programs. They were to promote intergroup communication and relationship building within the community and the county. And they were to serve as a resource during times of community crisis that stemmed from conflict. They were to provide information and referrals to organizations that promote healthy intergroup relations. And then they were to advise the appointing authorities, whether that be the city or the county, on necessary procedures, programs, or policies that promote equal rights and recognition and appreciation of human diversity. And that's right from the bylaws. Some additional highlights: the committee would have 3 subcommittees. One was a healthy intergroup communication and interaction group. The other was on public education. And the third was on crisis prevention and preparedness. They too were to meet quarterly. I'll have you know they did meet monthly though, other than in the summer months or maybe at December. And then the city-county rotated operational support every 2 years. And what that means is just a staff liaison that supported the committee just in setting up or where the meeting locations were. Just wanted to highlight a couple other committees that the city does have in this area. We have a joint city-county commission for women, and they are organized for the purpose of acting as an advocate for women and a resource of information on the status of women within the community. There's also the Commission on African American History. It should be noted there that that is not a joint committee, that is solely a city committee, and it's staffed by our city clerk. It plans, develops, and implements community projects that to recognize and increase the awareness and contributions of African Americans to Wilmington's history, to encourage and assist African American history, and then it also recognizes sites in the community that are significant to that history. So today we have several considerations in front of you. The first is you could sunset the committee and let the actions of the county, because as it was mentioned, as the bylaws currently stand, without them being rewritten and improved, the committee has lost its quorum and its formation. Option 2 is to review other avenues for engagement and identify any gaps a new committee could fill. The third is basically to keep the same committee, so to establish a new committee by City Council, but it would be to adopt new bylaws and to appoint new members, and they can be the same members from the city, but to make up the change from the county. And option 4 would be to pause until further actions from the state and federal government occur, because we know that right now we're kind of in a pause as we wait to see if the state, if they overturn the governor's veto. So we're still waiting for that. And so that is the information I have for you tonight. I'm glad to take any questions or comments from City Council.
Any questions from council members? Yes, Ms. Andrews.
Mary, I asked this question yesterday, and I'm still not entirely clear what the state law is going to do that's going to affect this committee.
Yes, ma'am. So the bill that was vetoed, the bill that was vetoed by the governor provides that no state agency or unit of local government can use public money to promote, support, fund, implement, or maintain diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives or programs. And so the question would be, is this a DE&I program? And part of that is, of the definition in the state law that the governor vetoed, is any program that is implemented to influence government practices with respect to race, sex, color, ethnicity, nationality, country of origin, or sexual orientation, other than for compliance with applicable state and federal anti-discrimination laws. And if you look at the bylaws of this committee, those are the exact things that they're being asked to look at in the community and make recommendations to the City Council regarding those things and how we can address those issues. And so I believe that this committee would be considered a DE&I initiative of the city under that definition. And so that's why I might suggest to pause until further actions are made, because I'm also being advised that they are trying to tweak some of these laws that have been vetoed when they are going back and looking at them. So we just don't know for sure how that's going to wind up and what it's going to look like, but right now, that's the status of what has been vetoed by the governor that could be acted upon at any time that the legislature meets in the future.
Can you tell me what part of diversity, equity, and inclusion is threatening to the state or the federal government? Is it the diversity part? Is it the equity part? Or is it the inclusion part?
I would never try to articulate what is in the minds of the legislators on this one. I can only tell you what's in the definition that they have created within this legislation.
Thank you.
Spears.
Yeah, I hate when Select goes before me. She does. Yeah, but here's the question, Meredith. Who gave the instructions on the pause as it relates to the city of Wilmington? Anybody?
Well, we haven't paused. As of right now, though, the committee, based on the way it was initially formed. So council can give us direction to establish a new committee, and we can bring you back the bylaws for approval. We put the option to pause, much as the city attorney has indicated, to wait and see so that we make sure we're drafting bylaws that are in direction of what we have from the state. But we did not choose to pause. The only reason this is before you tonight is because the county commissioners voted to dissolve their connection to the committee, which in turn made the bylaws basically need to be revisited from the city perspective.
And they don't have a quorum because the county instructed all of their people to not attend the meetings and said that those appointments were null and void. And so even if all the city people were to show up right now, they wouldn't have a quorum to actually meet and do business. So we'd have to rewrite the bylaws and make it just a city committee before they could meet again.
Right, understood. I think when you're passionate or you're adamant about something, you would show up. I would love if the people on the WHAC that were chosen by the county, if they would just show up to show those county commissioners how passionate they were about this work. And I follow up with Councilmember Andrews' question about the fear of diversity, equity, and inclusion. To me, that's just a snippet of what WHAC is doing. I think WHAC is more focused on us being humans and how we get along together in this community. And so again, that's more pivotal work that we need. I'll say it. I could care less about what the federal government at this moment mandates or what the state government at this moment mandates as it relates to how we work to better this community. And I've always questioned anybody that comes into this type of work and that doesn't want to help people or doesn't want to help this community improve. So I have always talked about innovation, and I think anybody who knows me, who's heard me before, we know that I would always and will always push the envelope or push the issue as it relates to fairness and what's right in this community, whether you call it DEI or community relations or whatever. You know, I think it's the work that needs to be done, as we can see on the state level, national level, but especially in this place called Wilmington, North Carolina. Thank you.
Anybody else? So what would you like, you need some direction from us.
It would be helpful to know what the majority desire of council is.
Well, I'd like to see some of the options coming forward with a new committee, what it would look like, what would be its charge, because this used to be part, believe it or not, many years ago, before we created the WHAC committee, this was called the Human Relations Commission or Committee in the county. It was under the county's umbrella, and they decided at that point in time, many years ago, to eliminate this, and then we came back and we reconstituted it and created this joint committee between the two bodies. And if things have changed from a legal perspective, obviously we have to follow some of the legal guidelines. I get that, but we have some time to constitute a new committee. I'm sure we'll hear some evidence coming forward from the state legislatures to how this thing is going to maneuver through the legislative process. and from legal statutes to what we can and cannot do. But obviously, I would like to see a reconstitution of this committee. But also, I want to make certain that whatever, the goals and objectives are, that we as a council have an opportunity to review them and to talk about them. Because I want to make certain that if the CRAC committee is making recommendations that we may feel need to be passed, or we need to pass some sort of ordinance here that would support some of those endeavors, that we have the right to do so. And it also falls within the guidelines of what we want as a community. It ties into our 5-year strategic plan and all the other stuff that pertain to that.
Yes, sir. And just to clarify, the state law doesn't prohibit, per se, city governments from having DE&I programs. However, they do control the purse strings. And what they say is that the city has to make a report to the state auditor every year that we do not engage in any DE&I programs. And the auditor is supposed to check in on those things, and if so, the auditor reports back, and we could lose state funding.
We understand the consequences and what's being held over our head.
Yes.
We get that. I feel that reconstituting the committee is to talk about issues that are residing within our own community, whatever they may be. I think the committee could play an important role in that. And I saw some of the benefits and some of the help that they gave us doing some civil strife that we've had. So I think it could play a very important and vital role. Plus the fact is that we sit in so much in our own silos today. I think it's an important committee that can break through some of those silos where people can come together to talk about issues they may have concerns about. This thing kind of crosses across neighborhoods and communities and all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I think it can play an important role if it's properly structured, and it's something that we think could help. At the end of the day, I don't want to waste people's time. At the same time, I want it to be a committee that is effective and that brings some meat to us that we can look at.
And we can certainly do that, Mr. Mayor. We can go and take a look at restructuring the bylaws, like you mentioned. That would be taking into consideration some of the things that we discussed with the human relations, like Mr. Spears mentioned, is about being human, not necessarily just these protected classes. And we can take for lack of a better term, take a swing at that and see if what we come up with is what council would like to see going forward. And then if there are any updates from the state, we can bring those to your attention as we're going through that process.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I would just want to make sure that my voice is heard, that I do definitely want to, continue the committee. And I like how Councilman Jordan said earlier about the other committee, that this is the time to tweak it. This is the time to make sure that we're meeting, I guess, all the requirements of the state as well as the federal government. But I definitely know that we need this committee, and like you said, it's for human rights. So I'm definitely in favor of us tweaking it and establishing this committee, or continuing the work of the committee.
Mr. Joyner.
Thank you for bringing this to us. I understand that it sort of was necessitated by there not being a quorum, so this would otherwise have not really been up for discussion, but specific feedback for staff. I'm sort of in between options 2 and 3. Now's the time to tweak it. Now's the time to improve it. Definitely against option 4, because there may have been a vote in the legislature, but it was vetoed, and until that's overridden, this is not the law, and I don't think we should take preemptive action for policies that our city is. This committee exists for a reason, and if the legislature is trying to punish us for having this kind of committee, they need to have the votes to actually make that a law. And so I'm not going to beat around the bush and, reform these committees until they actually take that action and start to take away money from us. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. That's the leverage they're holding over our heads, and hasn't happened yet.
Ms. Andrews.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of tweaking the committee, redoing the bylaws, whatever we have to do, but keeping this committee, keeping it as a City of Wilmington committee. I just wanted to point out that all of us who are city employees have this badge. It gets us in the building. And on the back of it, we have a little compass rose, kind of like our moral compass. And it's our shared, our core values that come from our strategic plan. And at the very top, our North Star is inclusion. And I don't think that there's anything that the state or federal government can do to take away our moral North Star of inclusion. And I am all in favor of continuing this committee. and continuing the concept of inclusion in our community.
Okay. Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, thanks, Mary and staff, for pulling this together for both of these committees. And I guess my only follow-up, it piggybacks a bit on what the mayor was saying. The city council will certainly have an opportunity to review and ultimately vote on revised bylaws. That sounds like the will of a majority of the board that we move forward to either establish a new committee, or as Councilmember Joyner said, option 2 here. But if there's a revision of the existing bylaws, constituting a new committee, reconstituting a committee, that'll ultimately come before us to review those bylaws and make amendments, tweaks, adjustments as we see fit.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Look forward to
It
it.
would go to the Appointments Committee and then come to you as a recommendation from them.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is our consent agenda, items 1 through 8. Are there any items that any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of this
I'd like-
council? Yes, sir,
I'd
Mr.
like
Ravenbar?
Excuse me, I'd like to have item 7.
Number 7? Okay. Anybody else?
It's C8.
C8? Mr. Waddell, did you say C8? Okay, C8. All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6, excluding items 7 and 8? We have a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Burnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Ravenbark. Mr. Ravenbark?
I don't know exactly who I should be directing this to. This bid that went out, it stumbled twice, and I just want to know if there's a lesson learned here. I'm not making light of it, but this can't happen, and it's happened before. It can't continue to happen. There are people out there that have bid on this. This is their livelihood, and we make admin errors, and this can't happen. I mean, I remember every teacher I ever had would test, look over your work before you turn it in, and this is a glaring example of somebody missed the boat. So
I'm happy to address that, Councilmember Rivenbark. There was a mistake with how some of the information was disseminated to the potential bidders, and I've talked with staff about how do we correct that moving forward, and putting all of the bid information online, and then if there is contact with a potential bidder, just directing them to the website instead of trying to email them the bid package would put all centralized information in one location, and so there's no opportunity then for erroneous or old information to be accidentally sent to vendors. So there is a fix, and that is the steps that staff will be taking moving forward.
I know that there's been many occasions where the bidder made an error, but boy, when we make one, it glares. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With respect to the item, do you want to? Oh, okay, let's go ahead. Mr. Waddell, go ahead.
Yeah, no issues with C8, but I always do try and make a point for the edification of audience, anyone watching, because it's always a really high number. I mean, we got $28 million on a consent agenda. It could be construed, what the heck is the city council doing putting $28 million bond on a consent agenda? But that this is really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we operate as I think a federally mandated conduit for the Wilmington Housing Authority when they're going out for projects to bonds. And we're a pass-through entity effectively for that funding. Is that y'all's understanding?
Happy to address that, Councilmember Waddell. We're not a pass-through entity. There's a stipulation in the statute that requires that council take action to approve this, but none of the money flows through. We are not the fiduciary in terms of responsibility for it. This is not our debt. This is essentially an affirmative vote for the Housing Authority to move forward and take on this debt.
So that funding goes directly to them.
Correct.
It never touches our accounts, and we are just required to be the entity to initiate.
Correct. And Mr. Garrett and the attorney for the Housing Authority are both here tonight as well, if any other council member would like to have any questions for them.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. We'll go back to item C7. We have a motion to approve by Councilman Ravenbark, second by Councilman Waddell. Further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we'll go to item C8. What are the wishes of council in respect to item C8? Have a motion approved by Councilman Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our public information section. Our public information is for 30 minutes and is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. We have multiple speakers that obviously have signed up to speak with us this evening. I believe we have more than enough, so if somebody does not show up, we'll bring you in to the discussion. So our first speaker this evening is Ms. Diana Toppin, who will be speaking to us about animal welfare. Is Ms. Toppin here? Is Ms. Toppin here? Okay. Seeing that she's not here, our next speaker is Ms. Ginger Connett, who will be speaking to us about the Haven at Galleria.
My name is Ginger Connett, and I'm a native Wilmingtonian. Okay. I live 2 minutes from Wrightsville Beach and 2 minutes from the Galleria, the Haven at Galleria. I've watched our beautiful coastal town become a series of monolithic buildings, and our quality of life go from idyllic to one of navigating traffic. I represent the 1,340 citizens who signed our Galleria Watch petition, as well as the many others who complain about traffic while trying to get to the beach. I represent all who are sick of tall, ugly buildings and see the removal of trees not only as loss of canopy, but as a symbol of our lost coastal heritage. I'm here today to ask our elected officials to help us get an updated traffic impact analysis before more vehicles are added to this already congested route. The study done October 2022 during school months only, Tuesday through Thursday, did not reflect seasonal traffic, holiday traffic, or other projects affecting going to or from Wrightsville Beach. It did not include DOT projects like the flyover or bridge replacements, which could take up to 10 years to complete. Let's look at this slide together. The Haven, 527 apartments now underway, possibly 593 with Phase 3, possibly 4,793 more cars. Look at Eastwood and Military with the center point, 75,000 already, plus 20,000 more. Already neighborhood roads such as Stokely, Allen's Lane, and our beloved designated North Carolina byway, Airlie Road, are being used as alternative routes. Already, you cannot safely take a left out of neighborhoods or businesses into Wrightsville Avenue. This is a public safety issue. Johnson Development benefited from the 2013 zoning deal and are currently only required to put in 3 stop signs at their access roads for traffic control. Will our city allow what could potentially be its largest apartment complex to later discover mitigating traffic may only be achieved by claiming private property? Will we lose more trees or, God forbid, the dwindling land around the 2 historic churches? Certainly Johnson Development and the city could look at traffic circles or include the widening on their side of the fence. Ignoring pre-existing dangers before a single unit is built is irresponsible. Tragically, keeping our city as beautiful as it once was is not possible, but protecting what we still have is. I'll end with a picture of the heritage trees in Phase 3 of this development. These trees provide the only remaining buffer for our neighborhoods from the Haven. As you can see, these 5.6 acres of green space with its trees are worth protecting. Now, we'd like your help. Instead of adding 66 more units to this overbuilt development, 5 stories, why don't you help us make it into either a city or county park? That's what we're asking for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Tom Harris, who will be speaking to us about camping on city-owned property. Mr. Harris?
Give me to raise the mic, Bill.
Please. There we go.
Okay, I'm a guy who never makes notes. I stand up and I speak extemporaneously, or whatever it's called, but we've got a real problem downtown with camping, and we've had it for years. And I feel like downtown has really borne a disproportionate share of the burden for the whole community. and I feel like it's time for downtown to get some relief. I know that Luke has proposed a citywide ban on camping. I'm not going to say whether that's the right approach to take or not. A little bit about my background that y'all probably don't know is that back in the late 70s, I was a full-time volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. In the 80s, I was a founding board member of the Affordable Housing Coalition in Winston-Salem. In the 80s, one of my companies donated the design services to design 3 little cottages, a lot like Eden Village has. Only 3 were built, then the city came along and tore them down to build their shiny new baseball stadium. I guess most recently I volunteer at the Healing Place about once a month. I drive down and I teach about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems and how the people who live there can calm them, especially the sympathetic nervous system by stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So I want y'all to know that because I'll probably take some heat from what I'm about to say, but we do need some sort of camping ban. I mean, I know a lot of the Housing First folks. I've met with some of them individually. I know they have strong feelings, but it's really time that the downtown business community quits bearing a disproportionate share. And the only way I know to accomplish that is some sort of camping ban for the CBD. How much time do I have left?
You got it on your clock right there, about 1 minute, 12 seconds.
1 minute and 12 seconds, okay. I know y'all have a tough job. I mean, it's not easy to figure this out. But while you're figuring out a long-term solution, we really do need an immediate short-term solution to help the CBD. It's such a small area proportionally to the total land area in the city that it's not reasonable to say that people aren't going to have an opportunity to camp somewhere if there were a ban in the CBD. And I know there are a lot of people who are passionate on the other side of this issue, who think there shouldn't be any camping ban anywhere. And I would urge them to consider being part of the solution, and if they want some of the homeless people who are currently downtown to come camp in their yard, invite them. And I'm not being facetious, I'm being honest. But downtown, we have long borne a disproportionate share, and it's time for council to help us out. And that's what I'm asking for tonight is help. And I'm asking civilly and nicely, and those of you who've been around 15 years know I can ask in some pretty assertive ways. So I hope to avoid that this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Next person is Mr. Josh Cranford, who will be speaking to us about downtown issues, downtown with aggressive panhandling, I would believe.
Dear members of Wilmington City Council, I'm writing this today to express my deep concerns about the current trajectory of downtown Wilmington. Specifically, I want to address the growing issues related to homeless population, visible throughout day and night, ongoing public safety challenges, and parking rates. I won't touch on that. As a longtime resident, downtown employee, for almost 2 decades, and first-time business owner, I've witnessed tremendous growth in Wilmington, especially in downtown. However, along with the growth, I've also observed increase in vagrancy, violence. While I fully understand and respect that all of these are complex issues, the absence of effective ordinances that we have a chance to work on today, we can do something. We really can, because I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I'm worried. I've got my daughter here, and now I'm speaking from the heart. And I want you guys to step up and help us figure something out. When I'm there at work, right on Marketing Front, I see all this. I get with Christina Haley. We have meetings. We can only do so much. It's now in your hands to actually help us work with the police, work with all the other issues that we have downtown, and vote on something immediately, long-term, something. Please, let's make something happen, because I don't know what's going to happen. We've got people that are terrified to go downtown. They tell me daily. And these are people that live downtown. They said, I won't go past 6 o'clock. When the sun goes down, we're not going to mess with it. I've got families that come through and say, we're going to choose somewhere else to go. So whatever you guys can do, whatever solutions you have, whatever you need to talk about now, later, what have you, please, we need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Tina Newsom, will be speaking to us about downtown early voting site.
Thank you, council members, Mayor Saffo, and Mayor Pro Tem Burnett for hearing me this evening. I'd intended to speak only in support of Councilperson Andrews' resolution to expand early voting options, but seeing the proposed ordinance to once again to criminalize being unhoused, which Councilperson Waddell put forward, I feel compelled to split my time this evening. So regarding Councilperson Andrews' resolution, I want to urge this council to do everything in your power to facilitate voter engagement. I appreciate Mayor Saffo's letter indicating willingness to provide resources to make additional sites available for early voting. Rates of early voting have increased during the COVID lockdowns and have remained high since. In 2023, 38% of ballots, or 8,080 ballots, were cast early, and that was spread across 4 different early voting sites. To limit early voting to one location may result in excessive wait times for those who can get to the Northeast Library, which is a problem for those who have to take time off work, have to wrangle kids, and have other responsibilities. Long wait times are a challenge for those who have transportation and other resources at their disposal. And for those who have additional challenges, such as having limited time off from work or needing to take public transportation, the barriers may become insurmountable. Creating an option to have an early voting site in downtown, close to the bus depot, may alleviate some of that burden. Fostering voter engagement and helping to ensure this council is comprised of representatives who reflect the true desires of Wilmington's residents and not just the desires of those who live near the Northeast Library or who have an easier time getting there to vote early. I ask that this council vote in favor of Councilperson Andrews' resolution and work diligently now and in the future elections to ease the path to voter engagement for residents across the city and across socioeconomic characteristics. I also encourage members of this council to dig into the process of working with the Board of Elections so that a plan for early voting sites can be requested or established earlier in the process in the future, as was done by the Council of Carolina Beach, to prevent such last-minute scrambling in future elections. Now to Councilperson Waddell's ordinance to make being unhoused a misdemeanor. The proposed ordinance starts with a quote from 2 policies, NCGS 160A-174 and 160A-179, which says, quote, grants cities the authority to prohibit, regulate, or abate acts, omissions, or conditions detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of its citizens, especially when those activities occur on the city property. I want you to remember that the people experiencing homelessness are citizens whose health, safety, and welfare need to be protected. Arresting someone and charging them with a misdemeanor for enacting the only option that they have does not promote their health, safety, or welfare. I ask this council to vote against this proposed ordinance and put your time and energy into understanding the root causes of homelessness and working to implement meaningful solutions rather than criminalizing the outcomes.
Next speaker, Mr. Ed Abelard, City Support for Early Voting, CRC.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for making this time available.
Raise the microphone up just a tad, you're a big guy.
Thank you for making this time available, and my purpose in coming here is to tell you I was very unhappy to read about proposed section 610, and I brought it up in the context of our friends meeting on Sunday, and they adjured me to not just express outrage, but to make a proposal of a solution. This idea comes from travel in Europe, where I found it was a very interesting system that goes on at every rail station. We don't have a rail station here. We do have bus stations. It called left luggage, L-E-F-T luggage. My wife and I, it took us a while to figure out what left luggage was. But my proposal is that city come up with an RFP to the public, the business people, to provide left luggage facilities within the city. We have huge self-storage places here. Some of those people could make their facilities available for homeless people who have luggage. And homeless people aren't the only people that come through the city with luggage. There are people come through on bikes with luggage. There are people who come with backpacks and need a place to put them during the day. So it is, I think, within the city powers to create a left luggage market here with an RFP to the community to make a place for homeless people with their market carts and also other travelers to leave their left luggage in a safe place during the day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jamison Scott, see here? Be speaking to us about need for multiple early voting locations, not just one.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thank you so much for hearing me. I'm going to be brief. For about 10 years, I have been a volunteer poll greeter. So I've worked at many of the polling places throughout Wilmington, and I can tell you that huge, long lines form. It doesn't matter if it's 95 degrees, it doesn't matter if it's raining. Our beloved voters stand out in those lines, and it is not fun. So when I read that we were going to have one spot for early voting for the November 4th election, well, my blood pressure really got high because I have to be out of town on the 4th, which means I have to vote early. So just do it for me, please. And anybody else who might not be able to vote on the 4th. I think that y'all are way ahead of me. Yes. So I want to say thank you.
Just for you, because we don't want your blood pressure to go up.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Mr. Joseph Apicarian. Ongoing issues in downtown Wilmington. Joseph, I hope I pronounced your last name properly. If not, I apologize.
It's Apicarian. Good evening, Mayor Saffo, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff, Wilmingtonians, good evening. My name is Joseph Apicarian. I come before you to speak about the ongoing issues downtown, all right? I've lived and worked here since 2009. I own the Eagles Dare Bar and Venue Space, Taco Baby Restaurant, and the Poorhouse Bar, okay? So ranging from Brooklyn Arts District to proper downtown, all right? The current challenges that people are dealing with downtown, whether it be talking about the unhoused community, juveniles late night, to just general upticks in violence. Council, something needs to be done. I'm literally, a bunch of business owners, a bunch of people representing downtown are pleading something needs to be done. Is it necessarily the ordinance being presented tonight? Is that the answer? I don't know, but what I'm pleading with you is something needs to be done. I get that this is a layered There are layered issues here, and it's multifaceted, and there is no right answer, all right, or one quick answer. But again, something needs to be done. We have members of the unhoused community from sunup to sundown downtown, aggressively panhandling, committing lewd acts, open air drug use and alcohol use, all right? Those things, we have business owners that have to go to their businesses early to make sure that they're cleaning up feces at the entrance of their business before their clients come in to get their hair done. Something needs to be done, okay? I watched families get catcalled, get hollered at on their way to go get ice cream. And I say to myself, that's a family that's never coming downtown again. All right? We have juveniles downtown, late night, hanging out predominantly in front of several establishments that are catering to underage or 18 and up crowds that are not downtown for any other reason than to be downtown. Literally throwing fireworks at people on Front Street over the 4th of July weekend. Something needs to happen. Back in just a handful of years ago, the task force was significantly more present. They knew us, we knew them, they knew who the players were. And I understand that the police department have their own issues right now themselves in terms of manpower. But again, something needs to be done and some presence needs to be felt. Whether it is this ordinance, whether it is a curfew for underagers downtown. Again, I don't know, but again, I'm pleading with you, something that needs to be done. There are other districts now. It used to be, where are you going, beach or downtown? Now it's, I've got Soda Pop, I've got Cargo District, I've got Up in Ogden. Those are all amazing spots. So for people to want to come downtown, we need to provide an environment that they actually want to come to. I'm running out of town, I'll leave you with this. Let me know when you want to go out. Meet me at Eagles Dare, we'll go out on a Saturday night, we'll load up in my car, and we'll drive around. I guarantee I'll blow your hair back. Not you and me, but.
Why you look at me like that? Why?
Please, let me know. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Next speaker, Mr. William Mellon, downtown scene. Mr. Mellon. We're cheering you on, Mr. Mellon.
For what? I don't know. Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I wasn't expecting to be up here. I was told that I was off the list, but I guess maybe someone not showing up allowed me the opportunity. I want to kind of touch on really what Tom spoke about, what Josh has spoken about, and Mr. Apicarian, me being a citizen of Wilmington since the mid-90s, a resident of downtown since the mid-90s. Waiter, bartender, manager at restaurants, Market Street that have changed names and ownership over the course of 30 years. Currently, a proprietor of a restaurant for 15 years. Fortunate to have been able to open up a cocktail bar on Princess Street North, or should I say west of east, excuse me. My land nav skills have left me for a moment. But my wife has a gift store on Front Street recently opened. We manage an apartment. We're kind of embedded in Wilmington, in downtown specifically. And I want to say this, talking about compassion, I can tell you how many times I've fed someone in need leftover food, whether it be cooked by the chef, whether it be leftovers that remained at the restaurant by accident, whether it be pizza from Slice of Life. I've given to those that need it. I've given money. Empathy goes a long ways, and Joe mentioned it. There's not really a right answer in this. But there is something that needs to be said for those that are here. We need empathy too. We need compassion too. And that is that something needs to be done, whether it's the camping scenario needs to be addressed, police presence. I'm just going to reiterate what's been said. Just something needs to be done. I live 4 blocks from here. I walk and ride here. Every morning I drive by this hollowed hall here, and there's 25 or 30 people sleeping in this area. I don't know if Shane Fernandez here, he mentioned a fire that almost took place by a campfire that was left. We can't have Failing Hall burned down. Where are we going to have these meetings? Right? So I just ask that you guys take into consideration the people that have put the flags in the downtown, the CBD, who've been here for a while, who you eat with, and who you come to see at sports bars and sandwich shops and home decor places. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mr. Joel Barrio. He'll be speaking to us about the National Avelo Airlines boycott because of their $151 million contract with ICE.
Hello. I want to begin my speech by stating that our City of Wilmington community is unfortunately complicit in the Trump administration's deportation machine. ICE has routinely terrorized our nation's immigrant community by rounding up people of Hispanic background in community centers, schools, churches, and in the middle of legal proceedings in a manner that disregards our nation's laws because they're doing this all without any due process. Speaking as someone from Hispanic background myself, I want to say I don't want to live in a community that provides any form of financial support to businesses complicit in this terror organization. So I'm here today to spread awareness about the national boycott growing across America, plead for all council members and Wilmington community members to please boycott Avelo Airlines in our Wilmington International Airport. For those unfamiliar with Avelo Airlines, they're a budget-friendly airline that, as of April this year, closed a $150 million contract with ICE to fly deportation flights to El Salvador out of their Mesa, Arizona base. Avelo is currently the only commercial airline that has a contract with ICE, so we're just trying to send a message to Avelo and every airline that having a contract with ICE is not profitable and not acceptable in our communities. Avelo Airlines has 3 bases across North Carolina. One of them is here in the ILM Airport. The New Hanover Airport Authority plays a crucial role in funding and managing of the ILM Airport. Our airport authority is appointed by the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners, whose current chair is Bill Rivenbark, the brother of our council member Charlie Rivenbark. Rivenbark, sorry, Rivenbark. Also, the New Hanover County Tourism Development Authority, or TDA, and our airport authority work together through a shared goal of promoting our community and fostering economic growth. Our mayor, Mayor Bill Saffo, is an ex officio member of our town's TDA. All of this is to say there's not a direct connection from the city council to Avelo Airlines, but there's ways for everybody to participate in this boycott. So we're just asking for Avelo to drop their ICE contract. We're not trying to get them bankrupt. Really, we just don't want other businesses to also create their own ICE contracts in the future. And I'm calling on Mayor Saffo to put pressure on the TDA to support the Avelo boycott, leverage the economic impact of our town's tourism and the growing negative image Avelo is fostering across the country. Avelo already had to leave their Burbank, California base because of the protests and abandoned all of their West Coast routes. Is this unreliable commercial airline that deports members of our community really the type of business we want to support in Wilmington? I'm calling on Charlie Rivenbark, sorry, to speak to your brother about this boycott. And, you know, as you speak to it. I shall, we shall. Also calling on all city council members who care about this cause to stand with our national boycott. This cause is championed by multiple organizations across the country, so please stand with us supporting our immigrant communities that make our country great and against the fear tactics used to tear us apart. And lastly, asking for all members of our community to stand up with us with the Avelo Airlines boycott. Let us stand in solidarity and let the airline be known for what it truly is, Abduction Airlines. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Mr. Chap Wallace. Is Mr. Wallace here? Mr. Chap Wallace. He's speaking to us about downtown safety.
Hey there, thank you for hearing us out. A lot of us business owners, I own 2 businesses downtown, both right on Front Street. I currently living on Front Street. I've been downtown for 20 some odd years, and since 01, 02, some shape, form, or fashion, working in places, managing places, now owning places. Downtown is, in my opinion, the most phenomenal place in this area. There's a reason why, but even people sitting here right now, nobody's from here and they're here. Downtown plays a huge part in that. Unfortunately, it's been abandoned. It's gradually going downhill. It's a joke that we have a text thread between business owners where we're showing each other who pooped on our entrances to our businesses. I personally, since I'm able to do so in retail shops that have young ladies working in them, we're not talking late night, we're talking 1, 2 o'clock on Saturdays, Sundays, Monday, every day of the week. I have to go in there and physically remove people. And I feel glad to be able to do that. I feel like I'm a steward of downtown. I feel like it's a responsibility to uphold the people that came before me and what they built. And this building was almost burned down. I mean, that's enough right there. Stalene Hall. You know, we're all getting tired of it. We put a lot of money into these things, and you know, I'm tired of having people come in for interviews, young ladies coming for interviews, and they're like, I'm going to take a job at Wrightsville, or I'm going to take a job in Midtown because my mom said it's not safe to work downtown. These are people who grew up in Wilmington. You know, and I'm very vigilant on the safety of my employees and the safety of my patrons, and it's sad. I mean, I don't think anybody, and I appreciate everyone, so I don't think anybody's really the day-to-day, because the problem is it's become so common that people are so desensitized to it. But, I mean, if y'all want to, I'll take your numbers and I'll put you in the text threads where we're taking pictures of human feces. To anybody in here, I'll sit there and do that. To where we daily have to go in there and deal with that. It's where like I said, and I'm glad to do it when I'm having to remove people that are threatening, you know, children with their families on Sunday afternoons, and you know, dudes pleasuring themselves on Water Street, right beside the ballast. You know, and I get it. It sucks. The homeless stuff sucks, but something has to be done. It's come to a head, and it's unfortunate. I thank you for your time. My door's always open if anybody wants to talk, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes, I think that's the 30-minute level, so that's a conclusion of our public information segment this evening. Thank you all for participating. Our next item of business is, let me see here. Do you have it? I don't have it here. PH1. Public hearings is PH1 ordinance closing a portion of Aubrey Alley between Parsley Street and Davis Street. At this time, I'd like to recognize City Manager, Ms. Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this item will be presented by Brian Chambers, our Assistant Director of Planning.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. The request to close a portion of Aubrey Alley, which is located between Davis and Parsley Streets. This right-of-way is currently unimproved. This map shows the site within the context of the surrounding area in northern downtown. And here are several photos of the existing right-of-way. The site is currently zoned CBD Central Business District. If approved, the closure request will add lot area to 3 adjacent properties. There is no potential connection for the alley to make at the intersection of North 3rd Street due to the proximity of the traffic signal in the intersection there. The requested closure would allow the site to be included in future redevelopment of those adjacent parcels. Staff believes this request would not have an adverse impact on our road network and believes the request is reasonable in the public interest and is recommending approval. And your Planning Commission voted unanimously on their June 4th meeting to also recommend approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of our staff? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. This time is the applicant would be, we are the applicant.
We are that, yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, applicant. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing and ask if anybody wants to speak on this particular issue, if they please come forward and state their name and where they live for the record. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Are there any further questions from council? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council. And I will also, consistency statement for the record. So Mr. Rivenbark has made a motion, second by Councilmember Andrews. Mr. Rivenbark, will you please read the consistency statement for the record?
I move to approve the proposed amendment to the Land Development Code and find it to
I'm
be.
sorry, Mr. Rivenbark, I'm sorry. There's not one for this item.
Well, there wasn't?
There's just one.
Was one
for the-
attached? I'm
For
sorry.
the next item.
I'm sorry, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, take a vote then.
Go, Mayor.
You're welcome. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Burnett, second by Councilmember Joyner. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to item PH2, which is an ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 18, to reduce the number of uses permitted by special use permit. Again, I'd like to recognize the City Manager, Ms. Becky Hawk. Ms. Hawk?
And again, Mr. Chambers.
Again, this item was continued from your June 3rd meeting. City Council asked staff to reevaluate this proposal. As a reminder, the original proposal that was presented to council included eliminating all special uses and special use permits and would allow these uses by conditional zoning. And as a reminder, there are currently 22 special uses that require a special use permit, 9 of which are located in our historic districts. The feedback we received from council on June 3rd was to keep the special use permits as an option in the code, keep critical community support uses as special uses, reduce the number of uses that require a permit to the fewest number possible, and then look at those special uses that could potentially be permitted by right with prescribed conditions. So staff took that information and made a revised proposal. We did meet with Planning Commission during a working group to discuss these changes. The current proposal maintains the special use process. It keeps existing special uses within the commercial and industrial districts, which would also include group home residential use, and then it allows several uses by right with prescribed conditions. The uses that were identified to be changed from special uses to by right with prescribed conditions, we base that on the prescribed conditions that are currently in place for those uses, how those uses are currently permitted in other districts in the code, and then whether or not that use also has the required review and approval from our Historic Preservation Commission. With that, staff does recommend approval of this. We believe this reduces the barrier to public participation. It allows for greater communication with council, and it simplifies the public hearing process. As a reminder, there would be no changes to the number or type of uses permitted or any of the prescribed conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions of our staff? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. This time I'm going to open up a public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak in favor or opposition to item PH2. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary?
No, sir. Yes, sir. We received one from a Ms. Coffey, who was supportive of this public hearing, this item, this ordinance.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions from council? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council, and I will also ask councils for a consistency statement to be read. Mayor Pro Tem Burnett has made a motion, second by Councilmember Andrews. Mr. Burnett, will you please read a consistency statement for the record, please?
I move to approve the proposed amendment to the Land Development Code and find it to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan, based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and in the staff report, and to find approval of the request as reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The opposed amendment will reduce the number of uses that require a special use permit.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Joyner, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. I also want to just say thank you to the Planning Commission and to our staff for working last couple of weeks on this particular item. Brings us to our next item of business, which is our ordinances. Item 01 is an ordinance adding section 6-10, certain actions prohibited on city property, to Chapter 6, Article 1 of the Wilmington City Code. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Waddell. Mr. Waddell?
I believe there may be a staff presentation proceeding, because I think the actual ordinance has the city manager's name on it, not mine. I know I brought the original one forward, and I was the driver of this one, but I believe, just for the record, that that this is driven by the city manager's office, which I appreciate. I'm happy to put my name on it. But
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to give just a brief presentation because I've had a lot of questions about this ordinance and what the city already has in place and how this ordinance differs with what we've already got in place. So I wanted to go through a few of those things with all of council first. So I wanted to go over just some of the city ordinances and state laws that are currently in effect that could assist in addressing homelessness issues. The first one, City Code 4-106, is obstruction of sidewalks or streets. And basically that ordinance says no street or sidewalk vendors and no placing anything for display on a street or sidewalk. And so that would mean no place, I'm sorry. Thank you. Ooh. So that would mean no placing anything that would obstruct anything on a sidewalk or street. Next is City Code Section 6.8, certain conduct prohibited in city parking decks. That's not just the skating, skateboarding, bike riding, but it's also not obstructing any walkways, stairways, ramps, driving lanes, or driveways or parking spaces, so there could not be any sleeping or camping or anything of that nature in the parking spaces or in the parking deck, because that would obstruct the workings of the parking deck. And also no damaging anything in or fixtures in the parking decks. We do not have a similar code that applies specifically to surface lots, which the county has in their ordinance, something specific to surface lots, and so the current ordinance as it's written here would include a surface lot provision, but we do have one for the parking decks. The next one is City Code Section 612, which is consumption and possession of malt beverages, unfortified wine, and alcoholic beverages. There's currently not allowed to be any consumption on public streets, roads, sidewalks, right-of-ways, or any other property owned or occupied by the city. I know you're all familiar with this one, which is why we have to get special permits from different groups that are wanting to allow access to those things. The next one, Section 6-14C, is the authority of the police department to disperse crowds. This doesn't apply to just one individual, but if there is a crowd of individuals who are crowding a sidewalk, this would apply and allow the police department to move them on when directed by a police officer. This applies not just to homeless individuals, but also to crowds gathering outside establishments late at night, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, or any other time that they'd need to disperse individuals. The next one is City Code 6-16, which is the aggressive panhandling statute. I know that was mentioned previously this evening by some of the speakers. Aggressive under our current statute includes physical touching, following someone, blocking their movement, and any other form of intentional intimidation. It applies in our public streets, sidewalks, right-of-ways, any of our parking lots, any parks, any other property owned or occupied by the city. So it applies to all city property. It also applies in any area where the general public has access, which would include doorways to entrances and buildings. And you also cannot panhandle within 21 feet of an ATM. The next ordinance we currently have is City Code Section 6-21, urination or defecation on certain property that's prohibited. Obviously, it's difficult to enforce because you essentially have to catch someone in the act of doing that in order to charge them with that, but that is not allowed on private property or on any public place, public street, sidewalk, or right-of-way, except in designated bathrooms, of course. Section 10-17 of the City Code, dumping, littering, or unattended property on public or private property. That says that you can't discard, deposit, or dump any litter or trash on public streets or sidewalks within the city, any property owned or operated by the city, or any other public property, but you also can't do that on occupied private property without the owner's consent. That also means that you can't leave unattended belongings on city property, and so we do have a mechanism in place to consider that litter or dumping if belongings or trash are left anywhere on city property. The next one is City Code Section 7-5, which is prohibited conduct in parks and recreational facilities. This is the one that is most similar and specifically talks about tents and camping. It just applies, though, to city parks and recreational facilities. It doesn't apply to all city-owned businesses or streets or highways. But it does include all the parks, which would include our pocket parks as well, Riverfront Park, and any of our recreational facilities. It does specifically mention no sleeping, camping, or otherwise staying in any park overnight. You can't lie or sleep on park benches or tables. You can't obstruct any bike paths or other walkways there. No damaging property, no leaving trash or littering. No conduct that seriously interrupts others' peaceful enjoyment of the property. So that is the closest city code that we have that specifically addresses some particular camping issues, and it's specific to our city parks and rec facilities. Section 11-13 is, again, another section that addresses obstructing streets and sidewalks. No obstructing streets or sidewalks or crossings interfering with anybody else's lawful use of those. That applies specifically to benches, any other public seating areas, and that includes you cannot store any materials or personal belongings in those areas as well. City Code Section 11-45 also applies to benches, chairs, planters, and other street furniture. That does specifically mention tents. No person can place or maintain chairs, benches, tents, structures, or any other street furniture or physical objects on any publicly owned property or right-of-way without a permit. So to me, that is the closest to an all-city property prohibition. It doesn't specifically say camping, but it does say you can't erect a tent or other structure. This would not apply if you were just sleeping on city property, but if you tried to attempt to put up any tent or other structure or fixture, it would apply on all city property to prevent that. We also have general statutes that we could use for second-degree trespass, which says that no person can enter or remain on another person's property after being notified not to enter or remain there. Our police officers can have the authority to, trespass individuals from city property. You also can't enter onto posted property. We also have a littering general statute about littering and disposing of trash on public or private property. And so those are both in effect as well as tools for the police department. So with those in mind, as just a brief overview, I'd like to go through the sections of the current ordinance and just have a little discussion about what the current ordinance is prohibiting or addressing. And then I'd certainly turn it over to Councilmember Waddell and answer any questions for council afterwards. The ordinance in general tonight as written is going to apply to all city property. So instead of having multiple ordinances, the request was to write something that would include them all at once instead of having multiple scattered ordinances that address different sections. But it would include anywhere on or within city property, and that would include leased property by the city. So the first section of the ordinance specifically addresses no occupying, camping, sleeping, or placing, erecting, or utilizing any tents, cooking equipment, or bedding between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. or any other such times as prohibited. To that, we could, right now, this would replace the current city codes that are listed up there that we've already got in place. It wouldn't replace them. They would still be in effect. You could still use them. But we do have the obstruction of streets and sidewalks, the benches, chairs, and planters, and all of those that I just mentioned that are on your screen, as well as second-degree trespass that we could use to apply to this statute. This is what we're currently using now instead of this particular ordinance or section. Section B is addressing personal effects, including clothing, food, bedding, eating equipment shall not be left unattended, and that any personal effects left unattended can be deemed abandoned and forfeited to the city for disposal at its election. We have currently now the dumping and littering on both the city code and the state law, and the obstructing streets and sidewalks or seating areas that would address these issues. Section C of the proposed ordinance is city parking decks or surface parking lots for parking and associated activities. Therefore, other uses are prohibited. That means that currently we have City Code Section 6.8 that we mentioned about the conduct prohibited in city parking decks. Again, as I stated, we don't currently have an ordinance that would address surface lots, or that would prevent, say, sleeping in your car in a surface lot. So we currently don't have something that would prohibit that particular activity that this would address. We do have City Code Section 11-45 as well, which includes no tents, chairs, or other furnitures on city property. Section D addresses entrances to city facilities and associated areas for ingress and egress. The city manager currently has authority to trespass individuals from city buildings and facilities. The previous city manager, Mr. Caudle, also issued that trespass authority to department directors to handle this situation for buildings and facilities where they are responsible parties for those. So for instance, Amy Beatty would have the authority to trespass people from parks facilities. A city manager would have the right to trespass someone from the Skyline Center, those types of things. Section E specifically states that this ordinance doesn't apply to emergency management sheltering events or to city employees in the performance of their job duties. And Section B doesn't apply to the general public who's present within a city facility for the purpose of transacting business. Violation, as I was mentioned previously, of this section shall constitute a misdemeanor. I will point out that virtually all of the other city code ordinances that I mentioned before already also are considered misdemeanors. So that is not a change in trying to make this a misdemeanor when other things weren't. When we went through several years ago and had to say whether all of our ordinances constituted misdemeanors or not, virtually all of these were left as constituting misdemeanors because they had to deal with the quality of life of individuals in the city. So we did, as you know, this came before council once before, and it was voted down at that point. Currently, at that time, the Grants Pass case was pending in the Supreme Court. Since that time, the Grants Pass case has been decided. They had a public camping ordinance in that case, and the court decided that it did not criminalize homeless individuals and that the camping ordinance did not rise to the level of cruel and unusual punishment. The camping ordinance in that case was similar to this. It was minor misdemeanors. Multiple misdemeanors could lead to increased penalties up to including jail time, but this as well as a Class 3 misdemeanor and would fall within the provisions of what would be allowed under Grants Pass. And so I do not believe that that case prohibits this camping ordinance from a legal perspective. Additionally, the Friday before last, President Trump issued an executive order that was entitled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. The changes that has or purports to set out is that the Attorney General, HUD, HHS, and the Federal Transportation Administration are supposed to be tasked at this point with evaluating grant programs, federal grant programs, to determine if states and municipalities meet specific criteria below in order to receive funding. That would be to enforce prohibitions on open illicit drug use, to enforce prohibitions on urban camping, loitering, and squatting, to adopt standards that address individuals who are a danger to themselves or others due to mental illness or substance abuse, to substantially implement and comply with sex offender registration obligations, particularly for those with no fixed address. I think that we would be able to make an argument either way, whether we pass this ordinance or not at council's discretion. I think that we would be able to make an argument that what we have currently in place would meet the enforcement of prohibitions on urban camping, loitering, and squatting. I think that by the same token, if council decides to pass this, then that would certainly apply to that as well. Federal funding could be lost if that criteria is not met, and for your information, currently the city has $9.5 million in federal funding as part of its fiscal year 26 budget, which includes all of our CDBG and home funding. So that is the funding that would be at risk if we were to not comply. I will point out, though, that most of the president's executive orders either have been or are currently in the process of being litigated. So again, just like the veto at the state level with the governor, we have no idea how that's going to play out. I'm certain that there will be challenges to this executive order, just as there have been to others. And so, but I wanted to point that out to you as a point for your discussion. I'd be glad to take any of your questions.
Ms. Andrews?
I just had a couple of them. So you were talking about blocking sidewalks with furniture and planters and whatever. What is the ordinance that allows, for example, restaurants to put tables out on the sidewalk?
They have to get a permit.
Okay.
So they're still subject to that, but they can get a permit to put something out that's got a sign or a marketing event. So they can have a permit they can get a permit to do that. So that same ordinance has the process for getting a permit.
Okay, and then just one more. This proposed ordinance uses the word occupy, makes it illegal to occupy a space. What is the definition of that? What does that mean?
This particular ordinance doesn't include a definition of what occupy is, but I think it also includes, let me go through. It starts with occupy, but then it further elaborates that includes camping, sleeping, placing, erecting, or utilizing those tents. And so generally speaking, occupy would mean using that space, if you go by the dictionary term of it, using that space to the exclusion of others. So if you were going to occupy a place in this room, you could set up a blanket, and that would be your space, and nobody else could use it. And if you enforce that, then you would be occupying that space. So it generally tends to indicate that you are using that space to the exclusion of other people who would have the public right to use that space.
Mr. Robbins?
Meredith, this ordinance, our existing ordinances cover everything that you've gone through except what?
The only things that I specifically believe are not covered is that we do not have an ordinance that specifically addresses camping in public surface parking lots.
On grade level parking lots?
On grade level. We have one that covers parking decks, but we also do have one that says you can't erect a tent or anything else on public property. That would apply to public parking surface lots, but it would not include things like not being able to sleep in your car if you were homeless, that type of thing. So there's very little that it doesn't cover. The ordinances we have don't cover.
So that's one thing.
Yes, sir.
Is there another that comes to mind?
No, sir. I believe we have one that covers almost everything else. It's just that they were spread out with the intention of universally applying to everyone and not in a particular trying to target the camping feature.
Okay. Can you scroll back where you were quoting the ordinances? 1145 came to mind. Go up one a little bit more.
7.5?
No, just a little bit. Well, there you go.
Yep.
Go back. I'm sorry. No conduct that seriously disrupts the peaceful enjoyment of the park or, I'm going to generalize that, downtown or wherever. I mean, that's a pretty broad statement.
It is. That one is specific for city parks. I would say that if you had somebody who was disturbing the peace, then the police definitely have other state laws that they can follow that would address that issue in general.
Okay.
Public.
My point is, with all this broad, pretty comprehensive list of code, city ordinances and what have you, we're where we are. all
Yes, sir.
these nice gentlemen and ladies come up, and we all see it. But even with these on the books, we're where we are.
Yes, sir. I do know that Chief Evangelist is here, and he's got some information about how the police respond to these incidents that he's prepared to share as well at the appropriate time. So he's willing to come up and talk about how they interact with the homeless population and how they enforce what's currently going on. So at the appropriate time, whenever you'd like for him to, he's here and prepared to address that.
I would welcome that. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm also interested in hearing what Chief Evangelist has to say. I just got kind of lost when you mentioned that what changed, okay? And I understand that the grant passed, and you said Class 3 misdemeanors. Tell me again what that means.
Virtually everything that is currently in our code that I went through with all of those ordinances we already have, they're already Class 3 misdemeanors under our city code. And this ordinance would be similar. So that's not changing. So we're not attempting to criminalize something that was not criminalized before. This ordinance would be the same level misdemeanor as the other ones that we already have.
So a Class 3 misdemeanor is what? It's a citation?
No, you could be arrested, but it would generally be a citation that you'd receive, but yes. It typically, unless you have a horrible record, it's not gonna wind up with any jail time or anything like that.
Okay, I'll hear the chief. Thank you.
Mr. Joyner.
That sort of leads into the question that I wanted to ask. So a Class 3 misdemeanor is the lowest crime in the state of North Carolina, correct?
Yes, sir.
Once we get below Class 3 misdemeanor, we're talking about infractions.
Yes, sir.
Which are not considered criminal activity. They're not included in a person's criminal record.
Correct.
Going up from a Class 3 misdemeanor, you're now moving to a Class 2 misdemeanor. We cannot enact Class 2 misdemeanors by state law, correct? Municipalities are only allowed to enact laws that are punished, if at all, criminally by Class 3 misdemeanors. Is that accurate?
I'd have to double check on that. I believe that is correct, but I would have to double check on that.
Okay.
We do not, I can tell you that we do not have any.
We do not have any.
Everything's either a Class 3 misdemeanor or nothing, or just a city code violation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Meredith.
Yes, sir.
Just looking at this picture just reminds me of something happened a couple of years ago. There was a nice elderly lady that had some property in the city, and there were some folks that were camping on it, and they left a mess like this. And we fined her, I think, something to the tune of about $30,000. You remember that?
I don't remember that
I think
specific
Charlie
thing.
does, and I do, because it's happened to a lot of different people in this community where
Yes, sir.
people have ended up camping in these particular areas. We find it, and then we find the individuals to clean that mess up.
Yes, sir.
So we require the private sector or anybody that owns property, even if it's in your backyard, if this kind of mess happens, we're responsible under the city code to clean it up.
We require the property owners to clean it up unless we are unless the police department is able to determine who is dumping or littering on their property and could then arrest them, then it would be part of their restitution.
Well, I guess the point is that we're making the private citizen on their own property clean it up. And yet when we have issues that have arisen that these folks are concerned about, we're saying our hands are tied or we're not going to be able to take care of it. That's what I'm hearing tonight. And I've seen a lot of it. I mean, I've seen people literally on the sidewalks asleep or passed out or whatever the case is. And they're right, we've got to do something. But there's another part of this too. And I want to go back to this. 2 years ago, we saw this iceberg. We had a joint meeting with the county about resources that we, city and county, were going to need to address this issue coming down the pike, because we saw it. We knew it. We had this big meeting down there at the convention center. We had a lot of the advocates groups here, the people, the service providers, that were telling us what they needed, and then we broke it down into subcommittees of 2 city staff and 2 county staff. I think Mr. Moten was on one. I think Rachel Schuler was on the other for the city, and I don't know who it was from the county, and they were going to come back to us with a report, because looking at the beds, looking at the resources as to when a police officer pulls up on these folks, and they say, we're going to take you somewhere. You can't be here, because we have compassion. We want to help you. We want to move you on. We were down to 173 beds, I think, or something along those lines. We got a pointing count of about 500 people, so we definitely have more people than we have beds or places that we could even take them to. And I'm going to ask this of Chief Evangelist. I don't even know when somebody's totally intoxicated and they're passed out, or they're having some sort of a mental issue, where they go and how much time it takes to take a police officer off the street to deal with that issue, and at the same time having to deal with a lot of the issues that these folks are dealing with on a daily basis. We had an issue at Hearst Drive. We had the neighborhood literally saying they're going to take matters into their own hands because we broke up a camp in North Kerr. They moved over to Hearst Drive. The people over there were upset. We went over there and broke that camp up, and of course they've moved around. What I'm saying is these folks in downtown deserve just as much of service delivery as any other part of the community, wherever you may live. I think that it doesn't matter if you're downtown, if you're in the suburbs, you're Pine Valley, Lincoln Forest. We've got an issue here. Part of it is service delivery, resources, and what we are dealing with. And that was the reason that we had that joint meeting with the county. And it seems like it just went nowhere. It just went into a vaporized. I guess they didn't want to talk about it. I don't know what happened there. But that's something that I want to readdress, because there was point and count times I was looking at. We were looking at matrices. We were looking at what other service delivery was in the community, how much was coming in from the outside area, especially in Brunswick County and Pender County that are also impacting us here. The predominance of all of the services in the city of Wilmington, which forces everybody to come down here. So we're dealing with a lot, and we were asking for some help and some insight to that, and we got nothing. Literally, I'm not blaming you. Part of it is because we should have called it out a little bit more. It's crickets on the other side. And so let's also talk about the state, because the state takes all of their social funding and gives it to the counties. They're an extension of state government. And I guess they don't feel there's a problem here. We got a problem that we're going to need the cavalry. We're going to need everybody here helping us. It's just not the city of Wilmington that's going to fix this. And to all those individuals there, because I know these police officers have arrested people. I know what's going on in the court system. Because if you go to the court system, if you've been in the jail for 30 days, you've served 15 days, good behavior, you're out the door. If you go into the hospital, there's no bed at the Oaks. There's no beds at Cherry Hospital in Goldsboro. There's nothing up in Jacksonville. They treat them, and they're back out on the street. And then I hear from these folks that are telling me, you guys haven't done anything. They're just right back out here. They were out here a couple hours ago, and they're right back out here doing the exact same thing. It's a revolving door. And they want us to fix it. And we're going to try to do our best, believe me, because you guys deserve it, because you have made investments. But we also have another issue in regards to services and service delivery, and what we're going to do as a community to attack that side of it, because we need more beds, we need more shelter space to at least get some of these people off the street. Because I'm looking at the shelter numbers. We're getting at 110% where they're turning people away, that there's no room at the inn anymore. And we only have 173. They're almost taken every night. So we know we've got an issue, and that's just something that we knew 2 years ago, and we just did nothing. So part of it is us. I'll take full responsibility for that side of it. But the other side of it is I'm not going to let the other side of this that has a lot of the social services money walk away from this either. Okay, guys? They have a responsibility to play here. So does the endowment. And so does this whole community. This is going to have to be resolved by the community, not by one entity or one government or the police, because it's going to be a revolving door. You're going to hear this tonight from your police. I want to go back and revisit that, and I think before we do anything, we need to get a lot more information. I think we asked for it, and we got nothing. And it's time for us to put the cards on the table and to start telling people where the money's coming from, especially from the state side. How's it being spent on social services that we desperately need? We can't do this by ourselves as a city government. I'm just telling you guys that. We can help, and we'll do our part to enforce and move it on, but it's not going to solve the problem. Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So I did some research when this issue came back up again, because we did we did address this issue in June of 2024. At that time, we had already met in April of 2024. We had our first joint meeting with the Wilmington City Council and the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners, and we did assign county and city staff to do work on these issues, and they did come up with a strategy to address unsheltered homelessness that was presented at a second joint meeting in September of 2024 that we were all there. Then in February of 2025, the county commissioners received from their staff a requested limited and focused report on 3 areas. And 2 of those areas included creating a mental health focused treatment and day center with supportive housing options. And the other one was updating land use regulations to increase access to housing units. And unfortunately, since then, the county commissioners have declined to move forward with either the mental health crisis facility or the land use regulation changes. You know, and now instead of implementing the plan that we all worked on, we had our staff work on, we put time into, and it's a good plan, we're back revisiting this ordinance that it looks like everything we're addressing in here is already illegal. It's clearly not the answer to the problem. A couple of years ago, the Cape Fear Housing Coalition had, is it Ms. Greg Colburn, down here as their keynote speaker talking about his book, Homelessness is a Housing Problem. And it sounds so simple, but it really is. And a couple of us missed that because we were up in Washington, D.C. at the National League of Cities, but I did get to hear Mr. Colburn a couple years after that, and I have read his book. And that's really where we are. We don't have enough beds. We don't have enough very low income permanent supportive housing. We're working on it as hard as we can, but it's just not there. There's no place for people to go. WECT just did a report earlier tonight, and they interviewed a woman who was, you know, aged out of the foster care system. She's 23 years old, and she's been on the streets since she aged out of the foster care system. These are not people that are criminals. These are not people that are necessarily on drugs. These are not necessarily people that have, they're people who need housing, and we need to do something about that. And just putting more people in handcuffs isn't the solution.
Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, I totally agree that
What we said we were going to do.
it's not a criminal offense, and I agree with my friends who are downtown, and we definitely have to do something. No ifs, ands, buts about it. But I guess my question is there an option? I know right now it's not a code violation, but is it criminal, or is there an option there?
I'm sorry, an option for what?
An option for if we find somebody on the street, what do we do with them? I mean, that's I guess my question. That's my challenge.
Right. So it's going to depend on what, if anything, they're doing, and if they're doing anything criminal, or if they're doing anything that the police can ask them to move along. If they're on a city street, we can ask them to move along. It's city property. If they could be blocking a sidewalk or whatever, there's always the danger that if you do that, if the police department does that they could wind up in some sort of altercation with that individual if they don't move along. So that's something that the police department's always going to have to deal with. I know that Chief Evangelist, several years ago, we did enter into an ILA with the county to do the Going Home program, where we were supposed to have our police officers with their social workers to try and create solutions for these issues downtown. I know they started off well. Chief Evangelist can probably tell you, because he's been looking into that program since he came back in his interim capacity, that they're having some difficulty with the social workers from the county participating actively with them. And the officers can't do it themselves without the social workers. So I think that Chief has, and he can tell you more, I think he's reassigned the officers down there with some officers that are maybe more proactive to kind of help with the identifying the problem areas as part of that program. And there's some of our downtown officers, I believe. But we are having, that problem has also kind of hit a snag because the social workers on the county side are not really actively participating with the officers.
We're going to get him up here. Okay. Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, a lot of impassioned speeches and finger pointing, and it's not us, it's somebody else. And I'm used to it at this point, but frankly, it's weak leadership. I don't have a whole lot of patience for it anymore. I do want to thank staff for spending some time on this, for their time, their consideration. Tonight we've heard, and I want you to know you're not ignored. Okay, you're not ignored. These business owners and residents who invest in our community, who've been directly impacted by our continued inaction on this issue, and who are literally pleading for us to do something. Not defer the blame, but to do something, to lead and to act. And so I'd like to address a few key points. There's been a lot of misinformation tossed around here. When I first introduced this ordinance last year, several of you, I'm not going to name which ones, but expressed hesitation, citing a desire to wait for guidance from the Supreme Court. Let's defer it, let's wait. That guidance has now come. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court ruled that cities do have the legal authority to prohibit public camping even when there's not adequate shelter available. In the months that followed, so in the last last year, more than 150 cities across 32 states have adopted or expanded similar ordinances. We're not reinventing the wheel here, folks. California alone has seen 42 cities and 2 counties take action. San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, San Mateo County, Fremont. Other states have cities, Illinois, Florida, Washington, Montana, Delaware, Oregon, all have followed suit. We're behind the 8 ball here. The laws vary. Some involve citations, jail time. Others include notice periods, shelter referrals. I'm open to a discussion on this. But the common theme is protecting public spaces and setting clear boundaries with the public. What I'm proposing tonight, once again, is not radical. It's not novel. It's not some new concept that I came up with. It's a reasonable, common sense ordinance that says our parks, sidewalks, and storefronts should remain safe and accessible for everyone, and that we prioritize public safety in this community. Some have claimed this is criminalizing homelessness. It's not. I've never suggested reducing our investment in services. In fact, I'm actively working to increase support in initiatives like Eden Village. Tom, I see you out there, and I appreciate you being here and the work that you do in our community every day. This ordinance is not about punishing people. It's about restoring some semblance of order in this city. It's about balancing compassion with accountability and sending a clear message about what the kind of city we want to be. We have all seen here in other cities what happens when cities let these problems fester, when leadership is weak. Los Angeles, San Francisco, others have become cautionary tales. We have sprawling encampments and open-air drug use, unchecked violence, rapes, murder. We're not there yet, but I believe we're at a tipping point. To demonstrate what we're facing, I do want to share just a couple brief videos that have been submitted to me by various residents over the last few months. If you don't mind, Dylan. I'll give you a little context here. This is a regular occurrence for this gentleman who's running down a family with a very young child here, aggressively panhandling, and they are walking as fast as they can away. I can tell you what I would do if I was there with my son. There'd be police involved, that's for sure. We can go to the next one. This is broad daylight. A couple homeless gentlemen. You'll see them regularly when you're downtown. Nice little fist fight right in front of one of our nice boutiques. Beautiful stuff, isn't it? Beautiful stuff. And then last, and this one really gets me fired up, and I hesitated to bring it up, but I do want to just say how incredible our police officers are. This is right in front of a restaurant. This homeless gentleman had locked himself in this vehicle that belonged to a girl under 21 who was working after school in her job. He had slashed all 4 of her tires and was locking himself, what I would only assume, waiting for her to get off work and come in that vehicle. Thank God we have the men and women in the Wilmington Police Department who were able to act quickly. Can you imagine the horror story that would have unfolded if this poor young girl would have left work in the dark and gotten this vehicle? Thank you, Dylan. There's others I chose not to show publicly, videos of business owners being physically assaulted when they try and ask somebody to get, to move out of the way so that patrons can come into their establishment. People urinating, defecating, masturbating, openly intoxicated in front of businesses and homes. I think you get the picture here. Tonight, the choice in front of us is binary, as far as I'm concerned. We either act on some form of an ordinance that says we actually hear these folks and we want to do something, or we continue to invite this behavior in our city through our inaction and weak leadership. By passing this ordinance, I believe we send a clear message to the public that we understand that a well-functioning city requires boundaries, prioritizes public safety, and enforces its laws. I know where I stand. Thank you.
Ms. Spears?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'll start by saying this. I agree that something has to be done. I believe that the framework for what needs to be done is already in place. The issue here may be enforcement. That may be the issue. The issue is also social services. The city attorney mentioned the reluctance of the HHS county social workers to work with the WPD, the Getting Home Safe program or whatever it's called. But it's my understanding that the county has, again, left that partnership as it has the previous committees that we talked about earlier. So that partnership no longer exists. It's just the police officers. I am appreciative of seeing the chief here. I would also, and it behooves me while we don't have the sheriff here, as the city of Wilmington is within the county of New Hanover. So there's a responsibility for them to act on the issue that takes place as well. And again, business owners, I hear you loud and clear, something needs to be done. But my thing is, there seems to be a discrepancy between when there are drunken military service members who are downtown acting out, who have spent a lot of money, publicly intoxicated, urinating and doing other things. There's a discrepancy. It's okay, come back next weekend when you're on leave or whatever. Oh, excuse me, I'm talking, thank you. It's okay with that. But when you have homeless people, and we cannot, Councilmember Andrews also stated this, everyone cannot be classified as an addict or an abuser of alcohol. But we want to put a control, we want to put some type of measure on this drunkenness, but we also want to promote social districts. You see the correlation there? Of course you do. So we can't talk out of both sides of our mouths about how we want to serve this community, how we want to help this community. It's a difference between the haves and the have-nots. Who's weak and who's not. I, sir, have never been weak in my life. But I also don't criminalize misfortune. So what we should do is try to come up with more help. So us waiting for other options or wearing our options out is not weak. It is us preserving the lives of people in this community. But we hear you. We hear your privilege loud and clear. Thank you.
Before we go any further, could I ask Chief Evangelist, whose task is to enforce these ordinances and talk about the whole concept, and not the concept, but the process involved, that once we have arrested somebody or addressed these folks in some capacity, what happens from the mental health component to the public drunkenness to the behavior that we've seen on these videos?
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all tonight. Yeah, we have a mental health crisis in this country. Well, we clearly do, and we see it downtown, all right? our number one issue downtown is mental health. Number 2 issue is substance abuse. Okay, that's what we're dealing with on a regular basis. You know, there's about 10 or 12 regulars downtown that we've seen here for the past several years. And clearly they have severe mental issues. And they're frequent flyers. They're just constantly, causing issues down there. And we've called social workers, we've gone down there with them, but that's a big piece of the problem. The other piece of the problem is the past 30 days, we saw 15 to 20 new faces down there. And those 15 to 20 new faces, they came from Atlanta, Florida, Delaware, Rhode Island, and 2 from Texas. And we asked them, why did you come to Wilmington? And they all said, because we heard good services here. That's just a snapshot of 30 days that we deal with down there. When we don't arrest people down there as our first response. We talk to them. We ask them to move on. If they're trespassing, we trespass them. We get the owners of the property to trespass them. If they show back up there, depending on the situation, we may issue a citation, or we may do a physical arrest. If we do a citation, they typically don't show up for court. There's a warrant issued for them. They get picked up on the warrant. They end up in jail, and there's no bond on them, or they'll put a bond on them, and they'll serve time served in jail. When we look at these encampments, which are a problem, especially on private property owners come to us and say, we want them off our property, and no one has a right to take your property over. And so we go in, we talk to them, we bring the social workers with us. We say, listen, you've got to move, you got to get out of there. We give them some time to do that. If they don't move, then we'll go in and we'll arrest them. All right, we don't want to, but we don't have an alternative. You have property rights. And so, as far as the downtown areas here, social disorder breeds crime. That's a fact. We've seen it all around the country. The more disorder there is, the more crime comes with it. So we have to figure a way to minimize social disorder. The vision of it, what we see, will eventually become crime. Okay? There was a study called Broken Windows, and it talked about social disorder and how crime grew from the disorder. And that's what we're talking about here, is disorder. All right? You look at it, doesn't look good, doesn't feel good. These folks, they're either have severe mental issues and or alcohol and drug addictions, a combination of all. And what happened, I got a good perspective of this. Back when I worked out on the West Coast in the 70s, is when California started closing state hospitals and said, communities, this is your problem now. And that moved east, and all the state hospitals closed. They leave 1 or 2 there. So you have nowhere to send these poor folks. They give them medication and they send them back out on the street. We take someone who's got a mental issue to the hospital to try to get a commitment. If the ER doc signs it, they get taken in for probably 3 days, if I remember correctly, evaluation. If they don't, they're back out on the street. They do is give them medication and say, take your medication. They don't take their medication. And then you'll see what the videos you see there because they're off their medication. It's a vicious circle, and then we're supposed to solve it. And our guys do a bang-up job as much as they possibly can, but until we close the loop here, until we decide we're going to address the issue of social disorder, get the services for these folks, assuming they want services. You can't make someone who's an alcoholic or a drug addict go to services. They have to want to, all right? And we're there, services first, housing first. But at some point, you've got to say enough is enough. okay? So we're here to do whatever the council's policy is, but I'll tell you, we're not going to be, you know, going through Richmond or whatever. We're not going to go out and just arrest people. We're going to go through a process, you know, and the first process will be try to get them help and get our social workers. You know, we deal with Jack Morris, WDI. He is the guru who knows about services. He knows anything and everything. My guys say they go to him constantly. And so it's important that we keep that peace in there. But there's no easy solution to this, none. Because whatever we do, we're going to aggravate one part of the population, and when we do something else, it's going to aggravate the other part of the population. So we're here for your guidance. You tell us what you want us to do, and we'll do it.
Chief, on the mental health component side of it, when you take somebody to the hospital, how long does that process take, and does the officer have to accompany the person that has been taken there?
Yeah, we wait there with them. If the ER is busy, it could be hours. You know, hopefully, you know, we can get in there, and if the doc thinks that, you know, they have a bed for them, and they'll sign the paperwork, and then we'll leave them there. If not, they're back out in the community, you know, and there's not much we can do about it.
So the ordinances that we currently have in place that you've seen here, does it give you the tools necessary to take care of the issues that a lot of these folks have shared with us this evening? Or do you need something beyond this that would help you in that process? And by the way, let me also say this. Early this morning, me and the city manager, in fact, had a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, and there was an incident there with a couple there that were homeless. And your officers pulled up on the street there. And I want to just say the way that they talked to them and the way they worked with them to try to get them to where they needed to be was outstanding. I didn't see any roughness or anything to say, come on over here, we're going to arrest you. It was really, let me see what we can do to help you. And I know that's the first thing. There's been some commentary about we're here to criminalize people, and we're not, because I know how the officers work. Some of these folks here would probably say we're too easy-handed in some cases. But I saw that firsthand today, and they didn't see me. I watched it from afar, and they did an outstanding job, and they got the people on their way, and there was no incident there, and it was done professionally. I just want to say kudos to those officers this morning.
You know, one other quick thing. You know, we all realize we can't arrest our way out of this problem. We can't. It's a mental health addiction issue that drives most of this. Although we had a kid that came down here, has been here for 4 months from Bladenboro, and he was trying to get home to his dad. And they called his dad up, one of my guys here called his dad up, says, will you come get him? He wants to come home. He's like, I don't have any money, I don't have any gas. He says, get here and I'll fill your tank up. And out of his own pocket, he had $40 of gas to get that kid out of here and get him home, okay? So we're not reverting to arrests for the first thing. We're not. We're trying to help these people going forward. And I want to say hats off to one of my guys here for doing that.
So going back to the ordinance, is there anything in here, I know that we've been talking about, is there anything in here that would give you any more tools necessary to help in this? This is a bigger issue, we know that, and there's going to be I think there's going to have to be a lot more discussion with others to see what we can do to bring more funding for different things. That's going to take some time. But in the meantime, from your perspective, is there anything else that we can do to help you and your team?
I think it gives us another tool in the toolbox. I mean, if you remember when we had the issue on the 3rd Street Bridge where you had 30 people on one side and 30 people there with camping, and it was a mess. We have similar situations like that with this new ordinance, especially at night, 10 o'clock on, that'll give us a tool to move them. But where do they go? Yeah, and so
it moves around.
It does. It clearly moves around. And like I say, one of my guys is saying probably 80% of the people down there aren't from here. So we are subsidizing everyone else's folks here, which is extremely unfair to taxpayers who live here and pay the taxes. Okay, and I don't know how you fix that. I know we had an issue with Myrtle Beach back years ago where they were busing them here.
Yeah.
And I won't say what we did, but they
Yeah.
stopped doing it.
Good.
So, yeah, I'm not sure what that answer is, but the social disorder piece is huge. And until you address that, crime is going to continue to be an issue.
Ms. Andrews?
So just a couple of questions. So the 15 or 20 new people that have come here in the past 30 days, for services, what kind of services were they looking for?
We didn't drill down that far. When my guys made contact with them, asked them where they were from, and asked them why they were here. And they said they're here for services.
Okay, so clearly they were misinformed because we don't have enough to go around. So the Getting Home Street outreach teams are not operating at this point?
So they have changed from boots on the ground to a caseload. So basically and I'm not quite sure how they're operating, but I know they have a caseload now, and they will come out if we call them. Okay?
The social workers?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, the social workers will come out if you
Yes,
call them?
if we call. But they're not out going to homeless camps or anything. So if we want them, they'll come.
Okay, why, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Why is that? Why are they not?
From what I understand, they transitioned to a caseload. So they've got people who are already in the system that they're working on.
Okay, so it sounds like the county is no longer participating in the Getting Home Street outreach program?
Well, they've got a caseload of people they're trying to get home. I mean, so I think their caseload is full, from what I understand.
Okay, along those same lines, we got a presentation from them some months ago, and it's not the first time that they've talked about this, that they were operating a bin den program out of a storage unit downtown. Can you tell me if that is still in operation?
I do believe that it is. Come here. Deputy Chief Sotelo actually met with those folks.
They're still operating. It's almost at full capacity, but they will not take anybody unless they're already listed under caseload, under case management system. Like Chief said, they moved from us going into the encampments with them into to a more of a case management system that they'll get referred from any services around town, including ourselves, and they'll schedule an appointment to see if they can come and meet with them. But like Chief said, if they want services, they'll offer them, but if somebody doesn't want them, it's not something we can force.
Okay, thank you. And then just one more thing, and you're probably the best person, Chief, to answer this. So those videos that Luke showed, I mean, those are just awful, awful things. Which one of those crimes, if any, would this ordinance address?
Well, I don't know that would address anything. That was probably a felony, and this ordinance is talking about basically blocking the streets and sleeping in areas. One of those people in that are losing their rights, and they actually are being held in a facility right now. But yeah, I'm not saying that the ordinance is the fix of all this, because nothing's the fix of all this. All right, but we've had them sleeping out here at Third and Chestnut the other day. So we're addressing that right now, but.
But basically, it sounded like the city attorney was saying, we already have all of these laws are on the books that really address all of these behaviors. They're already illegal, all of these behaviors, with the exception of perhaps sleeping in a surface level parking lot. But, really we do have all of these laws are on the books. Is that right?
I don't want to misspeak because she's the attorney. I'll be honest with you, I'm not certain. I think my guys would be better to answer that because they deal with this every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Joyner?
Chief, thank you for coming and speaking with us, and thank you for speaking with us so candidly. I appreciate that there are no simple answers, and a lot of this, you're hearing for the first time of the questions that we have. Thankfully, we were able to submit some questions to staff earlier, but I mean, a lot of actual work is happening tonight. Some things are getting aired for the first time because we didn't have those follow-up meetings, and this is you know, not an easy conversation, but some of these things that are getting aired are what I had hoped were going to happen in those work sessions. I wanted to ask you, you talked about bed availability. So if somebody is arrested by law enforcement, but there's a concern about their mental fitness, and maybe this is a capacity issue as opposed to somebody knowingly committing a crime, we're talking about severe mental illness, and you say that that person is taken to Novant, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the decision is made there by a medical professional whether or not they should be admitted and whether or not there's a bed made available. If the medical professional says this person should not be admitted, that answers the question. They're not going down that track. But if the medical professional says this person does need to be admitted, but we do not have a bed, what happens next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they'll call the Oaks. I don't know. I mean, typically, you know, they'll take them if they're going to sign papers on them. But remember, the only time we can take them there is if they're a danger to themselves or someone else. I mean, absent of that, we don't have any authority to do anything. And so, you know, I don't know the answer to that. If they sign a paper for a committal, then they've got to take them as far as I know.
Okay. Can I just direct this to staff that I think that's an important follow-up question that we're going to need some data on even after tonight. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, Chief, and actually this may be better directed to the attorney. I apologize for switching over real quick. I talked to you, Meredith, briefly about specifically with Class 3 misdemeanors, lowest level of crime in the state of North Carolina. My understanding of the state statute, which does give municipalities the ability to pass, as I read it, only Class 3 misdemeanors, nothing higher, and only infractions lower, also says that there is a fine attached to it, and that the maximum fine that we could set would be $500, and that's not in this ordinance, and that in the absence of the city speaking on that, it's a maximum of $50 that would presumably be imposed by a judge. Again, putting you on the spot, but I think that's important clarification too, because we're writing a criminal law essentially right now. That's what we're debating, putting a new criminal law on the books. And so if we're going to be in that territory, it's not just moment of misconduct to moment of arrest. We have to think about what is our instruction to the judicial system about what did we essentially legislate the penalty to be beyond that. And so we've got to drill down on that too. And we may come back to that.
And you are correct. I did have a chance to look that up, and Class 3 misdemeanor is what we are allowed to do, or an infraction, which is lower.
Okay.
And we did not speak to a fine in this particular. In all of our other ordinances, if we are going to impose a fine, we specifically list that. So a fine is not something that we would generally impose. If they were arrested for a Class 3 misdemeanor or for an infraction, the judge would then be able to impose a fine of $50.
Plus court costs.
Plus court costs, yes, sir.
You touched on this briefly in your earlier presentation. So somebody who has no criminal record versus somebody who has 1 or 2 points on their criminal record versus somebody who has 15 points on their criminal record each get treated or essentially punished differently under a Class 3 misdemeanor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you explain that to us?
So your criminal record is going to deter at which level you are convicted at. And with a Class 3 misdemeanor, it's not going to be a lot different because there's only so much that you can do. It's a community punishment block for the most part. I do believe that the most is, and you can correct me on this because I've been doing city law for 13 years instead of out of the criminal system, but I believe 10 days is the most, even if you have a bad criminal record, that you can get for a Class 3 misdemeanor, even if you've got a history of 10 or 20 previous violations. So it is not going to be a long period of time. In the Grants Pass case, I believe that their ordinance went up to 30 days, and that was deemed to be sufficient, that it passed muster under that case. But the lengthier your criminal history, the more, quote, points you have on your record, the heavier your penalties can be for any criminal offense. And so,
Thank you for that clarification. And sort of my last point on the sentencing piece of this is, under this, if this were to pass as a Class 3 misdemeanor tonight, essentially, this law would allow law enforcement to arrest someone for whom a jail sentence is not a lawful punishment. Is that correct?
For Class 3 misdemeanors, and Chief can address this more than I, typically speaking, you give them out as citations, but, I mean, you could arrest them. But, I mean, Chief, I don't know that, unless there is something else that goes along with it, generally speaking, this offense would be a citation offense.
So my question is then, if the goal is to get somebody to relocate, to stop behaving in this way, to stop engaging in this conduct in a specific place, and they say, no, I'm going to continue doing this, and we don't have a more severe crime, we don't have a sex act, we don't have an assault like we saw, we don't have a felony breaking and entering of a motor vehicle, all we have is this occupy conduct. And it's Class 3 misdemeanor, and they don't have a criminal record that's large enough to put them in jail for an extended period of time. So now I'm coming back to you, Chief. So what does law enforcement do? You write them a citation, and
Typically, we write a citation. Typically, they don't show up, and typically, we arrest them, and they get incarcerated.
So I want to drill down on the moment that police have been called. They're engaging in this antisocial, under this ordinance, illegal conduct. Law enforcement comes up and says, here's a piece of paper that says you've been charged with a crime. In that moment, I know that we've got a court date out in the future now. In that moment, what are they doing what are we doing, what is law enforcement doing to actually get them to stop engaging in that behavior? Because to me, that's the crux of why we're having this conversation. We're trying to talk about what tool do we have to end that behavior.
If they refuse to leave after we've advised them, we've given them a citation, and we come back and they're still there, we're going to arrest them.
And now we're in Class 2 territory because we've got resisting a public officer for not following a lawful command, potentially.
Yeah, that might be stretching a bit, but.
Okay. Okay. I'm really concerned about this effectiveness piece. And so when I hear the city attorney say the meaningful difference between this and what's on the books is a surface lot, I'm shifting now back to, okay, well, what do we need to do so that law enforcement can actually enforce what's already on the books? And I don't know if we've got that answer tonight. And that's why I'm saying let's take some things down that we're going to have follow-up conversations about. So again, I don't have the answer either, but that's the headspace that I'm in.
Thank you, Chief, for your statements. And my train of thought is similar to Councilman Joyner's. I guess the question I would ask is, if we pass this, and the mayor asks you, what can we do to help? You know, I know we can't, like you said, you can't arrest your way out. Do we need more officers on the street? Are the officers connected with the knowledge of knowing what other services are being provided? Like, for example, and I look at this like as a spiral, because once we give the citation and then we arrest the guy, then we take him to jail, and he's homeless, so he's not going to pay bond, and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So help me out, please.
So our officers understand what the social connections are out there for services, clearly. And like I say, we use WDI person. What we want to occur is them to accept services. Okay. At some point, hopefully they'll throw their hands up and say, we'll accept services. But a lot of these folks don't want services. That's just the facts. Mm-hmm. Okay? And until they want services, we'll get them services. Mm-hmm. But if they don't want it, because they're not in a good place, we can't make them. This is America.
Thank you.
Mr. Rumbar.
You know, there's an old saying in the recovery says, you know, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll do something for yourself. And that's when they would be receptive to services. But until then, you just said it, you just hit the nail on the head. You might as well be talking to that wall. And everybody in this room and all the people that were here before they all left should operate a bar, an entertainment spot, or be a policeman and be right there at the tip of the spear to see what goes on when this stuff happens. We can sit here and pontificate about committees and what we're going to do and service and all that. Those people need help tonight, and your hands are kind of tied because we can't do the things that they need to be done tonight or tomorrow night. It's a long run, and it's sad because I've been here all my life. That used to be the most family-oriented section of the entire town, day and night, and people are scared to go down there because of the stuff that we just saw in the videos. And I know that you guys are out there. Boy, you guys do a great job, as good as you can do. I feel for those people. I really do. They're struggling and they need help.
I would like to make the offer to anyone on the council who would like to ride one of our officers, and they'll take you out, all right? And we'll take you out there and you see what they're dealing with. You know, it's easy to talk about it, look at videos, get out with them on a Friday or Saturday night and see what's going on. They're more than willing. They came to me and said, ask them to come. You know, we'll take them. So,
Mr. Spears.
Chief, I want to thank you for your input. But I think we're overlooking a point. You know, when you talked about police interaction with the homeless, the unsheltered, and we talk about the criminalization of these actions that potentially take place, we do understand that a lot of times, majority of the time, what happens with suspects, criminals, whatever you will call them, is within the discretion of the officer, right?
the officers have discretion, yes.
Right. So I've known you for a long time. You have a pretty good law enforcement ideology. I would go off a lot in the community just expressing how great of an ideology you have, but you do know that it's a top-down mentality. So sometimes the ideology that you have up here doesn't always trickle down to some of the people that are on the street. And I believe that's where the criminalization comes in at. You're saying, hey, we're going to give them this opportunity. We're not going to arrest first. We're not going to do this. But that may not be the action of every officer every time. And please, WPD, don't get mad at me again. I understand I'm the go-to guy that you want to be mad at. But just listen to me, because you know that I'm speaking the truth. So I understand what you're saying. And I'm not saying that it's not rough downtown. But I will also say this. For all of us who are saying, oh, it's bad downtown, it's the worst that it's never been, ever been. How many of you go to New York? How many of you go to Washington, D.C.? How many of you go to Florida? How many of you go to Jamaica? How many of you go to Mexico? Has the homelessness stopped you from going to any of these places? No. You still go. You overlook it. Is it an eyesore? Yes, it is. But it's not stopping you from going anywhere else in this world that you want to go. Nowhere. We just don't want it in our own backyard. We don't want to walk out and see it, and I get it. I wouldn't want to see where someone's put their extremities in front of my business. I wouldn't want to see that. And I heard Councilman Waddell talk about what would have happened if he and his family were downtown. But, I mean, at this point, you've been on the council for 4 years now. I don't know how many times you talked about your interactions with the homeless downtown. Why are you so hyped up today? And what you would have done, and you've never done it. There's something that needs to be done. We're going to work to do it. But we're not going to just lock people up.
Mr. Waddell.
I want to reiterate Councilmember Joyner's point in thanking you for having a candid conversation with us here tonight. I think it is certainly beneficial and important. To your point about a ride-along, I did one a month and a half, 2 months ago, and it's certainly, I've done a couple of them, but this, it's really eye-opening to get out there on a Saturday evening and see what the men and women of WPD are going through on a day-in, day-out basis. I have nothing but the utmost respect for the work that you guys are doing. I have a lot more to say, but I think the main point that I got from everything that the chief said here tonight is that this ordinance would be, when he was asked explicitly, another tool in the toolbox to combat social disorder that results in increased crime. And for me, that's enough right there. I want to give these men and women every tool in the toolbox that I possibly can within our legal means to make sure we are prioritizing public safety and have a vibrant, safe downtown and greater city area. Thank you.
Mr. Burnett.
Just for clarity, and maybe this is to you, Meredith, and the Chief, you mentioned this is another tool in the toolbox. What are we adding to this ordinance that he doesn't already have?
So in general, as I mentioned previously, this ordinance kind of puts a lot of the things that we already have in one place. And so instead of having to figure out, is this obstructing a sidewalk, or is this trespass or whatever, this specific ordinance says specifically between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. you can't be camping, sleeping, using tents or anything on any city property. So the officers wouldn't have to try and figure out where does this fit into in any of those other ordinances that I listed. If they saw that activity, they could just charge them with this offense between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So in that sense, this is, when he says this is another tool in the toolbox, I believe that what it means is that just like any of the other ordinances, it would be something else that would be in one place for the officers to be able to see. I think that's the main emphasis.
But it's always this, like 10 to 7, that's always been on the book.
We don't have the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. In any of the other ordinances. Those are all citywide at all times, other than the specifics that are in the park ordinance, which just say overnight. And so this time, the time limits that are in this ordinance are different in that for this section, for Section A, it's specifically talking about camping, sleeping, using tents during those overnight hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Some of the other ordinances, it was 11-45 or 47, I don't recall, that talks about not having tents on public property. That applies at any time. But that ordinance is not one that's probably widely used, but that ordinance does apply throughout the city.
Okay, so the 10 to 7 is the main thing that's added to this, Chief, that you guys haven't had before. Is that what I'm hearing? And maybe I'm kind of getting like fuzzled, maybe because I drank the Coke or something. I don't know, but so is that it?
That is one difference. The only thing that I believe that this ordinance covers in general that we don't have in other ordinances, as I mentioned, is the surface parking lot distinction. Mm-hmm. We do have things about tents and camping on city property in other ordinances. So I don't think that this necessarily adds anything to that. It differs in that it specifically addresses camping during overnight hours. in this one section, and then the other sections it puts together. It brings together some of the other things that are in other places as well. So, when Mr. Waddell was asking about bringing this forward, that was the question, that was the impetus that he stated, was to try and bring all of this and put it in more centralized of a place. And so there are more, a lot of our ordinances are all, they could be encompassed in this one ordinance. But that doesn't mean that any of the other ordinances would go away either.
Okay. So so basically what we're doing is taking this ordinance, taking those ordinances that are in different places and putting them all together in one spot. So
We're
that,
mentioning them all in one spot.
so the police could say, okay, this is what I'm doing.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Chief. Sir, appreciate it. So if this passes or if it doesn't pass, but if it does pass tonight, for whatever reason, if it does pass, the other issue in respect to services, beds, all the things that the other part of this that had been talking about some 2 years ago and never came to any kind of resolution on, what do we do then? Do we just leave it at that? Because Chief has just shared with us, this is not going to fix the problem. So do we just pass a camping ordinance and that's going to take care of it? Because I remember a couple of years ago, we passed an ordinance in regards to panhandling, where we put signs up, and that didn't resolve that either. But I know we resolved the middle part of it, where you can't stand in the middle of the street, but you still have an issue there. And I would hope that whatever we do, and if it fails or it passes, that we somehow look at that, because that's a significant component of trying to help alleviate some of the pressures that we're all seeing here. Because I see this point and count, which I think is undernumbered. I think it's bigger than that. Those are the individuals that we could contact that one evening. I'm sure it's bigger than that. And I know that we've supported supportive housing with Lakeside Reserve 48 units. I know we're doing something with the Sparrow, which the city kicked in the old fire station on Carolina Beach Road, plus over $1 million some for 34 additional units of supportive housing. We have been very supportive of the initiative to try to help these folks. I think there's a level of frustration that these folks just need some relief on some of the issues that we're seeing. And I have seen personally, I know a lot of you have seen them, that have transpired downtown in the last couple of years. And I think we need to do something. Mr. Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So turning back to staff, my understanding is that Deputy City Manager Tom Moten and Rachel Schuler were sort of the two city point people when we were doing these joint sessions with the county. Is that correct? I see them nodding. I see Becky turning on her
that's
microphone.
correct.
Okay. I mean, I'd like, and this isn't going to happen tonight, but I'd like us to pick up where we left off. I mean, even if it means that we're just working with city staff, even if it means that it's the 7 of us, let's pick up where that task force left off. Let's look at those recommendations. Let's see what the city can do. And we've discussed tonight, the city's not going to be able to do everything. The city's not going to be able to do everything financially, and we're not going to be able to do everything because the county has certain statutory authorities that we don't have. But we should pick up where we left off. I mean, I was very frustrated that we're going to meet again in 90 days, never got booked. That doesn't mean we can't book it now. So that's the first thing that I would propose in response to what do we do next.
Mr. Burnett.
I'm in favor of what Councilman Joyner just said, because I think that we cannot lose what we've already been working on. And I do want our friends in downtown to know that we do hear you. Luke is not the only one, Councilman Waddell is not the only one that says we hear you. He's not the only one that has taken trips in police cars. I've done it a couple of times, okay? So we do hear you, and we do want to make sure that the police understand that we want you guys to really do what you are already allowed to do. But I really think, though, because it's such a huge issue, I really want to make sure that we've got everybody at the table. The faith-based groups, the private sectors, even the business groups. I want to make sure that we've got everybody at the table so we can all pull together and help these unhoused individuals get the best services we can get. Because obviously, as the chief has said, we will not and cannot arrest enough people to do that. But we do need to make sure, I think, that we maybe could have more presence in the area. And I'd also like to see us make sure that we respond to those situations that we see. But I do think we need to really continue with that and hear more from what we need to be doing.
Ms. Andrews?
Some of the things that we had in that plan that I think we do need to be doing, you know, we talked about launching a downtown day shelter with access to bathrooms, cooling stations, case management, and referrals. We talked about distributing the federal home ARP funds, which I understand we have an amended plan that's going to be coming to us this fall. We need to do that. We need to push the county to revisit its commitment to the mental health crisis facility and zoning reform. We need to expand our voluntary storage and hygiene services, which reduce clutter and improve conditions in public spaces without criminalizing the people who rely on them. And we need to support the Getting Home Street Outreach Initiative and other non-police behavioral health response teams who can de-escalate and connect people to care. So those were just some of the things that came out of our strategy. And yeah, we need to implement them. It would be nice to do it with the county's help, but we're going to have to do something even without the county's help.
Ms. Spears?
Yeah, and I just want to say this for clarification purposes. I don't want to keep reiterating that I hear you. I do want to say that in this community, I work extensively with all people. So I have worked with the homeless. Mr. Moten, what year was that where the city provided the mobile shower for the homeless? No, not that long ago. Anyway, the work has been done. I'm very hands-on, and I'm often downtown. I don't have the same interactions as some have downtown. I don't know why, but I am downtown. I'm a patron. I'm all over this entire city. I see people in many different places. I meet people in many different places. And as an elected official, I try to give a very impartial, unbiased opinion as to a solution as to what can take place in this community, because this is my home. I didn't come here a few years ago or whatever. I was born here. I was raised here. I'm glad to be a part of the leadership in this community. I absolutely love it. I try to work with everyone. So for people who are questioning what I've done, or for any other elected officials who have, in any other governing bodies who have elected to opt out of helping people, I'm here. The proof is in the pudding.
Let me just say this real quick, and I'm just going to put that as a proposal. We've heard a lot of passionate issues here tonight, and I think this thing has risen to the top of the TP. The services are important, and you know, for those folks that think that we're criminalizing it and they were hurting people, the service delivery and the beds and the shelters are critically important to it. And we've known this for quite some time. It just didn't happen. And so that's part of it. And that was something that was supposed to be brought back to us in 90 days or whatever it was, David. And I know you, David, we had, I think, a couple of meetings about this. And whether the county's there or not, I don't really care at this point in time. I think right now we have to understand what the impact is going to be to us as a city and what we can do to work with others to make this a reality. So that's one side of it. So I'd like from Tom and from Rachel, and maybe Becky, if we can do this at our next agenda briefing, where we have a pretty broad discussion about the service side of it and everything that we can bring to the table and who's there and who's not there. I know the Salvation Army has another section there that they want to build, that there was talking about a shelter there, an additional shelter space that we may be able to be participants in, and maybe with others. I know Mr. Dalton, Dr. Dalton's out here, and I know he's got some issues and some plans out there also. So on that one side, I think we need more, I'd like to see a little bit more information to share with the public, to let them know exactly what we're doing as a community, so they don't feel that we're criminalizing these people in any way, shape, or form. On the other side of the equation is that we've got these people that have been asking for help for quite some time, to the point that it's come to the top. I mean, the passion that I've heard, and I've heard from these people on a personal basis. I've seen it myself, folks. I've walked the streets. I've seen what you folks are dealing with. They deserve some relief and some help also. I'm prepared to vote on something in the first meeting in September. I am willing to vote on something in the first meeting in September, but I want to make certain that we see both sides of this very clearly as to what it's going to look like, funding, what the opportunities are, what we are going to do and how we're going to do it, and then exactly how the police will implement it. And then I think that we need to take some kind of an action. That's just my take on it. Because I know, Luke, you brought this forward, and you've been talking about this, and you brought it forward to us. We've been getting bits and pieces of information from that last meeting that we were talking about with the county about the other service delivery side of it. And I'd just like to have an opportunity to bring all that together and take a vote. This proposal. Yes, sir.
I'm glad to hear that you're ready to take a vote in a month or so. I think we've let enough time lapse on this. The communities, we're hearing exactly what they need. We have something in front of us here today that I'm ready to move forward with. I'd be open if there was, if it was more narrowly tailored to the CBD exclusively. I think bringing this forward is to drive a good conversation that we've had up here today. And I'd be open to that if it be something that everyone, anyone would agree with. Either way, I'm moving something tonight.
Well, I don't have a problem with it, and you may go down, but I'm willing to take a vote on it in the first meeting in September, because, yes, it is affecting the CBD, no doubt about it, but I saw it on Hearst Drive. I've seen it over there on North Kerr. I've seen it in South Oleander. I've seen it in Forest Hills. It's not just here. It's everywhere. And I think the other part of it is, how do you address all of it? Because it's not just going to be here, guys. It's on the railroad tracks. You take a walk down there and see what happens. So, yeah, it's important that we address the issues, because a lot of the service delivery is down here. I'm willing to take a vote on it, but I want to have more information that we were supposed to have that was never brought forward for whatever known reason. So that's just my take on it.
Well, if I can rebut,
yes, go ahead.
I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is not an either-or situation. We can take action on an ordinance today and set this meeting and have more conversation with the county, without the county. I don't care. I'm here. I work for the city just like all of you do, and I'm more than open to having these additional conversations of services, and something I've supported in various degrees. But I think there's really no reason to wait until September 1st. It's action that we can take here tonight.
Thank you. Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm just making the motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Councilmember Waddell. I'm going to make a substitute motion and delay the action until the first meeting in September. That's my motion, substitute motion.
Just kick it down the road again.
No, I just
That's
said,
exactly what we're doing,
I said
Mayor.
September.
We do this way too often. We've got I want to see, we'll vote on you and you're going to win, but we're kicking it down the road. Those people need help tonight, and the police need, as the chief so eloquently said, another tool in their bag. So let's move on.
We have a motion, we have a substitute motion by me, second by Councilman Spears. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5
Way to go,
to 2.
gang.
5 to 2. That brings us to our next item of business, which are resolutions. R1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with surplus property located at 1702 Burnett Boulevard to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. At this time, I'd like to recognize City Manager Becky Hawk. Ms. Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this item will be presented by Aubrey Parsley, the Economic Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I have a short presentation for you tonight regarding an offer the City of Wilmington received for the purchase of 1702 Burnett Boulevard from the NCDOT. First, I'll go over a little bit of background about the property, which is shown on the map here, highlighted in red. It's about 5.5 acres. It currently houses the City Parks and Recs Maintenance Operations Center. It's been city property for a very, very long time, and as you can see, it's adjacent to Greenfield Lake to the east, a former Optimist Park, and the Port of Wilmington to the west. We made this property surplus back in February of 2023 with the purchase of the Skyline Center. And early acquisitions, the conversation between the city and NCDOT have been going on for some time, and have resulted in this offer that we recently received last month, which was a $4.251 million thereabouts offer for not all, but a substantial portion of the property at 1702 Burnett Boulevard. They also need a temporary easement, which effectively will act as a construction land rental, and that they will also pay us for $8,150. As I've mentioned, the bidder is NCDOT. This is a part of their U5734 project, South Front Street widening as it's more commonly known. This is a contingent offer since the project is not fully funded. More on that here in a moment. It does require NCDOT board approval, which is why they've labeled it as contingent. The offer does come with a leaseback to the city with proposed rents in the first year of $155,820 and a little more than $163,000 in year 2. If council were to approve this tonight, I believe based on the schedule shared with me by NCDOT, this property sale would close sometime in November or December of this year. Here you see the portion of the property that DOT seeks to acquire for the right-of-way acquisition, as well as the temp easement, temporary construction easement. That's that little bit of orange shading you see on the upper right-hand corner of the slide. The city would be left with a remnant that's a little bit less than 1.8 acres, and the city would seek to dispose of that property as well. A little background on NCDOT's project. It is not fully funded, but they are acquiring this property via their early acquisition process, which is again going to require their board of directors to approve it, which we very much expect they will. The project has a total funding requirement of just over $76 million, and right now the construction is not expected to begin on that project until 2029. Other considerations here, this is not going to require a bid process. It is a transaction between two public entities, so it can be brought forth to you in this fashion under the statute referenced on the slide. The resolution before you tonight would authorize the city manager and city attorney to do both the sale negotiation and execute those documents as well as the leaseback. If approved, a future ordinance would be brought forward to council to appropriate the funds at that time to both bring the funds into the general fund, I believe, as well as assign the funds needed for the leaseback. Staff, as I mentioned, will pursue the sale of the remnant and likely rezoning since, as you saw on the first slide, there's some mixed zoning of light industrial and R5 on that property, which is not terribly compatible with the surrounding area. New disposition authority that the city recently obtained through the local bill does enable a leaseback structure for that remnant as well, should we need it. So those are all my remarks for tonight, and I'm happy to take any questions that council may have.
Are there any questions of our staff? Okay, thank you. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion approved by Councilmember Joyner, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item, which is item R2, which is a resolution in support of additional early voting locations. This time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Andrews?
Oh. I didn't know I was going to be introducing this. It's become a bit of a moot point here since we all unanimously agreed to send a letter to the Board of Elections in support of multiple early voting sites. In fact, the same 3 that we had in the city last year. But we're going to go ahead and do our resolution just to emphasize our support for those early voting sites. So would you like me to read it?
Doesn't matter. Whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the resolution in support of additional early voting locations, whereas in response to recent budget cuts by the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners and multiple other factors, the New Hanover County Board of Education, that should be Board of Elections, has eliminated all but one early voting location in New Hanover County for the 2025 elections. And that location is New Hanover County's Northeast Regional Library. And whereas the absence of an early voting site in or near downtown Wilmington will create significant accessibility challenges to the voting process, especially for voters who rely on public transportation or live in communities that have historically faced barriers to voting. And whereas Mayor Bill Sappho sent a letter on behalf of City Council to the New Hanover County Commissioners on July 30th, 2025, requesting that the other 2 early voting sites that were used in the 2023 elections located at the Cape Fear Community College Health Sciences Building in downtown Wilmington and the New Hanover County Senior Resources Center on College Road be reinstated as early voting sites for the 2025 elections. And whereas the Wilmington City Council wishes to pass this resolution to show additional support for the request in the mayor's letter and respectfully requests to both the New Hanover County Commissioners and the New Hanover County Board of Elections, not education, that the decision not to provide any early voting locations in downtown Wilmington or other areas of the city be reconsidered, and that these 2 additional early voting locations would be added to the BOE's early voting plan, whereas the city has allocated certain funds in the FY 2026 budget for the purpose of supporting 2025 municipal elections, and if county funding is not an option for downtown early voting location for the 2025 elections, this resolution would serve as a request that the commissioners and the BOE engage with the Wilmington City Manager as soon as possible in order to determine whether city resources, monetary or otherwise, could facilitate the opening of additional locations for early voting. Therefore, be it resolved that the city clerk is directed to provide a certified copy of this resolution to both the New Hanover County Commissioners and the New Hanover County Board of Elections prior to the joint meeting of those 2 entities, and that should be August 6th, not August 8th. They're going to be meeting tomorrow at 5:30, August 6th, 2025. That the city manager and the city attorney are directed to engage immediately with the county manager and any other required staff regarding the possible addition of a downtown Wilmington early voting site for the 2025 elections, including the possibility of expending city resources, financial or otherwise, that could be used to support additional early voting sites. And with that, I would like to move that.
Yes, sir. I'll make those corrections and get it to the clerk first thing in the morning.
Okay.
My apologies for the typos.
Luke, did you have a?
Yeah, a couple clarifications and points I think are important to note. After it became clear that we all missed an email from the executive director of the Board of Elections that sent to us on I believe, June 9th, I sent a follow-up last week in conjunction with Councilmember Andrews, asking that we get a letter to the Board of Elections as soon as possible, making it clear that we support 3 early voting locations, just like we've had in the most recent municipal elections. That letter was drafted by staff, thank you, and then signed by the mayor and forwarded accordingly. Following that, I reached out to the chair of the Board of Elections directly just to ask if there was any additional information that they may need from us ahead of their special meeting tomorrow. And there are some items of clarification that I think would be wise to put on a resolution. In 2021, we had 3 sites: the Northeast Library, Senior Resource Center, and Cape Fear Community College, that were all open for the full 17-day duration. In 2023, most recent municipal election, we had 4 sites, is my understanding. Northeast Library was open the entire time, while Cape Fear Community College and the Senior Center and I guess Carolina Beach Town Hall were open for just 1 week on a staggered schedule. The mayor's letter that we sent out asked to repeat the 2023 locations, but Cape Fear Community College's Health and Sciences building is not available, as I understand it. It's under construction, so alternate downtown sites, I think that have been discussed, and I see some nodding from Becky, would potentially be the Skyline Center, which I would certainly be amenable to. So we need to decide, I guess, in this resolution, are we just asking for the same schedule as 2023? Or are we aiming for, we need to clarify exactly what we're asking for. According to the Board of Elections, their proposed budget to the city covers 3 sites for 2 full weeks, I guess, for that 17-day period. And I do want to talk a little bit about what actually transpired. The Board of Elections' decision to go with 1 site, as I understand it, had nothing to do with funding cuts. In fact, the county increased their funding by over $300,000 this year, and the vote was unanimous. It was supported by both Republican and Democrat members of the board. The truth is, this situation happened because all 7 of us missed a pretty important email. That's it. No conspiracy, no sabotage, breakdown in communication that we missed, and we need to own that, and we have. To our credit, we're doing the right thing now, working to fix it, and I think that's right. What is really disappointing to me, though, is the way that it has been mischaracterized publicly. Councilmember Andrews posted on Facebook blaming partisan motives, making claims about budget cuts to the Board of Elections, and saying that was the reason that this happened, and that's, as we know and have all acknowledged, not true. In my time on council, I've never seen any of us go down that road. We have heated ideological discussions, but we never invoke partisan politics into them. I've never seen it in my time on council. And frankly, it's shocking to me. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we handle them. Using this moment to, try and score political points, spreading misinformation, injecting partisanship into our voting process, to me, again, it's not leadership, and it's not how we've operated on council in the time that I've been here. So, Councilmember Andrews, I want to ask you tonight, would you retract that post and work with us to revise that resolution to accurately reflect what actually happened, specifically that first line? No spin or blame game, just...
Yeah, I didn't write the resolution. It was staff that wrote the resolution. And my comments about the budget cuts were just reflecting the Board of Elections director, her comments during the meeting that did happen without our input. She had mentioned that the budget cuts were a reason for only putting forth the 1 site. And if that is not correct, subsequently I found out, and staff wasn't even able to direct me to this information at first, but yeah, that it is in the budget, we do pay for it, and so it really isn't an issue. I agree with that. And yeah, we can take out the budget restrictions if that turns out not to be an issue. We can take out that part of it. We need to change the 2 parts of the Board of Elections. And I agree that we can ask for the same schedule that we had in 2021 and not the one in 2023 where we only had the Northeast Library open for the first 8 days. I'd be happy to go back to the schedule we had in 2021, so if we could add that as well, I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Burnett.
Yeah, just for clarity, I believe that the 2023, the Carolina Beach was open because the county was running too? Is that why?
No, no. 2023 Carolina Beach was open because they just decided to open a site down there.
All right, yeah, I'd like to. Oh, okay, that's right.
Okay. Ms. Andrews,
23, 21, 23. Okay, okay, I got you. My bad.
Do you have another comment? All right, thank you. Do you have another comment?
No.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, so we've amended that. We've amended it. Okay, we have a.
Yes, sir, I think I've captured your changes, and I'll make them and get them to the city clerk tomorrow.
Okay, We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Councilmember Spears. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. That brings us to our last order of business, which is item RP1, which is reports of council's evaluations committee. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Spears, who is the chairman of that committee. Mr. Spears?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fiscal year 25 performance evaluations performed by the City Council of both the City Attorney and the City Clerk have been concluded, with both individuals being rated as meeting expectations. As a result, their new salaries will go as following. The City Attorney new salary will be $208,819. The City Clerk's new salary will be $116,638. I believe the fiscal year 26 has already begun, so these payments should be retroactive and will be reflected in your next paycheck. If I'm speaking out of terms, let me know. So we just need a motion to approve or any other discussion, and I make that motion.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Mayor Pro Tem Burnett. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by City Attorney?
Yes, sir, just briefly, we do have a brief closed session at the appropriate time, and I would like to thank all of council for that evaluation, and I look forward to working with you in the next year.
Very good. Madam Becky?
No additional items to be brought forward, Mayor.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
No, sir. Just want to say thank you. It's my pleasure and my privilege to continue to serve this council and this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joyner?
There is one community event this week that I should have brought up when we were talking about homelessness services. Vigilant Hope, which is one of the groups that does homelessness services here in town, is trying to get folks together to work on a safe parking initiative, which would be volunteer sites that allowed folks who are living in their vehicles to stay overnight on that site with some form of maybe volunteer security, or to provide them with additional resources so that they have a safe, consistent place to stay while they're living in their vehicle trying to get back on their feet. That is going to occur at a community meeting on Thursday, August 7th at 6 p.m., Thursday, August 7th at 6 p.m. at the Vigilant Hope Roasting on South 16th Street. Thank you.
Mr. Waddell? Mr. Barnett?
Just a couple quick things. One, we're real thankful that summer's almost over and we had a safe summer, not really many major things happening. Just want to remind folks, many kids are already in school, but most of the public schools will start, the year-round schools start Thursday, and then the other school, traditional school starts, I think, about a week later. Going to give a challenge to our community. Give an apple to a teacher. The second challenge is anytime you pass a bus, say a prayer for those on the bus. And then the third thing is support parents as they go back to school this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rodenbach?
Yes, just wanted to mention that this past week we lost a very good person in our region, Mayor Mike Allen over at the city of Belleville, town of Belleville, died very suddenly, and he was just a true patriot. He was a retired Army Command Sergeant Major, and if you don't know what that means, that's just like a five-star general is to an officer, a Command Sergeant Major. That's as high as you can go as an enlisted man. They run the Army. So we'll sure miss Mike. He was a fine man and a good mayor and a good public servant. Thank you.
Andrews?
Yeah, just wanted to mention that this past Saturday, the mayor and the Mayor Pro Tem and I attended the annual Cape Fear Purple Heart dinner, and the mayor introduced a resolution to, along with the chair of the county commissioners, to declare also August 7th as Purple Heart Day in Wilmington and New Hanover County. And so just wanted to thank all the service members there that were honored. I was there apparently as the sole representative of the Air Force veterans. Had to get up and sing by myself. as well as of the Gold Star moms, and very happy to be there and proud to be in the presence of all those great patriots.
Mr. Spears?
Yes, sir. Just want to say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
I also want to say, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Andrews, as well as the county commissioners, Mrs. Walker, who's out there with us. I didn't even see you out there. Stephanie and Chairman Ravenbark and Commissioner Zappa were also in attendance, and that was a tremendous event. But what was really interesting and very enlightening was there was a World War II veteran there, which is their 104, about to turn 105, wounded in action in World War II twice, and came from the back of the room to the front with no walker, no cane, no help, and came to the front of the auditorium and came and walked himself back, and it was just an amazing sight to see this spry young 104-year-old veteran there. So, but kudos to Sheriff McMahon and the Purple Heart organization that put that together. It was a fine event. So with that, we're going to go into closed session, and I'm going to ask for a motion to enter into a closed session pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11A and 4, in order for the City Council, number one, to discuss potential economic development initiatives and tentative economic development incentives that may be offered by the City Council in negotiations. The closed session will be held in council chambers, and everyone is asked to leave the chambers at this time. At the end of the closed session, council will reopen its public session from this room at that time. So do I have a motion to go into closed session? We have a motion made by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Joyner. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item passed unanimously. We will now go into closed session.